Welcome to episode 61 of the Finale Podcast. Today we got Zach, Christian, and Konnor on to preview week 4 of the NFL regular season. Guys, how have you been since week 1? Obviously it's been a while since we've had you on.
Good. It's been a pretty good season so far.
It could be better.
Yeah, it always can
I
be.
agree with
that. Yeah. Seems like Christian speaking from a Vikings fan perspective.
Zach speaking from a Niners fan perspective. I didn't hear what Konnor said about how he felt about the season, but as a Raiders fan, I feel like he's neutral.
I'm not disappointed because I expected this, so it could be better, but I'm not losing sleep over it.
I expected the Vikings to be bad, but not 0-3 through 3 weeks.
That's disappointing. I mean, the Vikings just continue to beat themselves, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Just wanted to break down the leaderboard. 3 weeks in, everybody's gone at least once, so just want to give you guys an update. So at first place, we have 36 points, Yosef. So he's 6 points above Zach with 30 points in second place. And then we have a 4-way tie at third place with Christian, Konnor, me, and Sidalad. And then last place, we have Tyler, 3 points behind at 24. So it's still relatively close, when you think about it. 36 points to 27 or 24, it's not really too much to, make up. So I think everything's still, within reach at this point. So just wanted to give a breakdown of that so far. How confident are you guys going into, this week of picks?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, feeling good also.
Probably would have felt better if the Cardinals didn't beat the Cowboys and the Texans didn't beat the Jaguars, because now I'm really not sure what direction the season's going to take and how games are going to go.
I mean, well, now you have a little bit more, knowledge of what's going on in the league. Maybe, your analysis will help you get more points this week. But with that, moving on to surprises and disappointments from week 3. What are some of the surprises from week 3 that you guys put down?
For surprises, I have the Arizona Cardinals being pretty much competitive. Everybody pretty much wrote them off, but they didn't write back. Get your chips out because I got the cheese. But I think I thought going into the season, I was pretty confident in Josh Dobbs' ability to, be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I thought the run game with James Conner was going to be, average or at least a little bit above average. But I thought Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore were going to be good security blankets. Everybody knew that the defense was going to have question marks, but they pretty much held their own. They got, on a bad game. And I mean, Daniel Jones is going to become Daniel Jones, at least in the first half. But, I'm very surprised by the way the Cardinals have been they seem very well coached, which is also a surprise. Everybody didn't necessarily expect that, especially for what we talked about last time. But other than that, I mean, I'm very impressed and very, very surprised.
Okay, that's a good one. I mean, they had a few good red zone stops. I remember against Dallas. I know they had a pick late in the red zone. So I think their defense is holding up so far. I think that was a concern coming into the season, but looks like Gannon's kind of put a little bit of his imprint onto that side of the ball. Offensively, yeah, Josh Dobbs, he's making plays. I know last year he didn't, in my opinion anyway, he didn't look the best in Tennessee, but he obviously has experience. So it was a good, trade for them to make and bring in a guy that, could be there for the time being, without Kyler. But yeah, offensively, Marquise, Hollywood Brown's doing his thing. James Conner's obviously there and doing his thing. Rondale Moore, big touchdown on Sunday. So I think at this point that, the expectations aren't too high, but they should be proud of with where they're at. So that's a surprise as well for me.
Yeah, I think Arizona has been surprising, but I have to go with Houston. I think not so much that they just won, was how they won and how well CJ Stroud has been playing. I watch college football a lot. there were games where CJ Stroud looked really good, and then there were games where you saw some of the, I guess, inconsistencies or some of the stuff that scouts were worried about, like his arm strength and like whether or not, like, you know, how limited his ceiling was or how high his ceiling was. But what you're seeing is his anticipatory throws, his connection with his receivers, his like the timing and location of his throws are all better than anyone in his class. And I just think that if the Texans are really patient with how they build, and they continue to get a lot of the good young players like Tank Dell and some of these other guys, they're gonna be competitive. And I think CJ Stroud right now, I think there's an argument to be made that teams felt safer picking him than Bryce Young just because of his size and his durability. And we see, Bryce Young has gotten hurt already. I'm not trying to make career judgments after 3 games, but you're seeing the best of what CJ Stroud can be, or at least what his floor is. So I'm really impressed about what I've seen from them so far.
Yeah, I think that's a good one too. CJ Stroud, if I'm not mistaken, is the 5th. He's in 5th right now with passing yards. I'm not sure what it is right now, but he's in 5th place. The NFL posted that today, so he's definitely showing a lot of accuracy and poise for a rookie. And I also think he is looking like the best rookie quarterback thus far. But Anthony Richardson's been out, so we'll see for the time being what that is. But I think the offense is definitely playing great. That was an impressive win. They put up 30 plus points, however it was, against Jacksonville, who had high expectations coming into the season. I remember like that game. I think they had like a special teams, like the punt return that was like muffed, and then the fullback picked it up and went all the way to the end zone for a touchdown.
Yeah.
3 weeks in, they've had decent performances. I know Baltimore, they lost, but like they looked good in that game as well. So I think so far it's so good for CJ Stroud. And I saw Brevin Jordan, one of their tight ends, who caught a touchdown pass on Sunday. He said like the Texans' like greatest blessing was winning a game last year against the Colts, I think it was, and because basically that would have meant they would have been at the number 1 pick and taken Bryce Young instead of at number 2 taking CJ Stroud. So it looks like everything's going the way they want it to, but it is very early to rule out any of these other rookie quarterbacks and what they can do. There's still a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure. Something that surprised me, and it's like a double surprise for me. I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it. It's not, to me, as impressive as what Houston did or what Arizona did, but it's strange how quiet people have been about that Colts win on the road against Baltimore. I mean, they didn't look great through the first half with backup quarterback. I mean, Minshew's more experienced than Richardson is, so some could argue if they didn't have that veteran presence under center that they might not have won that game. But he played fairly well. I wouldn't say really well, and he had a game tying drive at the end of that game to put him into overtime, and then I think he did it again in overtime to kick the game winning field goal. So that kind of was a surprise. I don't think any of us before the season started would have had Indianapolis beating Baltimore on the road.
Yeah, especially the way that Baltimore started the season, undefeated going into that game. I think, Gardner Minshew is like a really good quarterback to have. Obviously, he has starter experience from his time in Jacksonville. And that game, it was kind of weird. They had multiple possessions in overtime. I think Justin Tucker missed the game-winning field goal. But 2-1 at this point for the Colts is a win for them so far, in my opinion. Before we go on to disappointments, I have one question that I wanted to bring up. Is there any reason to worry about the Jacksonville Jaguars at this point being 1-2, about them defending their divisional crown?
I mean, for Jacksonville, they, historically never really get off to a fast start. I saw a clip of Trevor Lawrence say that there's really no reason to panic. You're only through 3 games of the season, and I'm sure, they're still working through gaining chemistry with Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence. The offense is still getting acclimated, and really, if I were the Jaguars, I just wouldn't panic too much. The Titans are having their trouble. The Colts, early success, can they sustain it? The really big question mark is, Houston in that division for Jacksonville. If they can, beat them, because I can only see Houston going up, considering, they have, what's his name? D'Amico Ryans, but a great defensive mind. But I don't think there's any reason for the Jaguars to, panic.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Connor.
Oh, sorry. I think the Jaguars, I think, are fine. Like they have the talent to win a lot of games. The two biggest questions, I think, is their pass rush going to be consistent enough, and is the wide receiver core going to perform well week in and week out? Because you see, like Calvin Ridley will have a good game, and then Christian Kirk, and then Zay Jones, but it's never feels like they have more than one receiver that has a good game, and I feel like it can lead to your offense being sort of predictable. Travis Etienne has been really good. That's not a surprise, but I think just across the board, they need to have their whole unit play well, and not just a couple guys. And then the next week, a different set of guys plays well. That's a problem because, their division is like weak by NFL standards, but as what happens in the NFL, you see, any given Sunday, a team like the Texans can get hot and then win a game. So you can't be dropping too many of these divisional games early.
Well, that also, like the divisional game thing, was what I was gonna mention before. So they dropped. Yeah, it was at home, but they dropped a game to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are they're gonna win games like that. They didn't have a great start against Detroit, but they're missing two of their best players. Half their starters didn't play in the preseason, so they got a little more mojo going into that game against Jacksonville. They're a better team than Jacksonville. And then they lost to the Texans at home, and it wasn't really even a close game. But that's a divisional opponent. Like the Lions, even at their worst, playing the Packers at their highest, would be competitive with them and sometimes beat them. The Jets, same with the Patriots, they would never beat them, but they would keep it competitive. Sometimes the Bills would run away with games against the Patriots. And the Patriots and Dolphins are a really good example. The Patriots go on the road against the Dolphins, even with Tom Brady, they struggle. It's just when you play a team every year and twice a year, you kind of get to know them. You know what makes them tick, what their weaknesses are, what they're good at. So you're more prepared for those games than you would be other teams that you're facing like once every 3 years if they're in the same conference, and once every 4 if they're in the other conference.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's early and everything. Just wanted to see what you guys were thinking on that. But what are your guys' disappointments?
Joe Burrow.
Okay.
And I think he's trying way too hard to play the role of hero with his calf. I think it's definitely hindering him. He's definitely not as mobile as he generally tends to be. Monday night, a lot of his throws were kind of off the mark. He's missing wide open guys for screens. He missed T. Higgins, I think, overthrew him when T. Higgins was wide open. It's just he's clearly not comfortable. He claimed either last week or this week that he was 100%, and he's not fooling anybody. I don't think there's any slump coming from after signing a big contract. I don't think that's the case. Joe Burrow's smarter and physically more talented than that. I think he's just playing hurt, and he shouldn't be. The Bengals probably would have been better off dropping the first 3 games and having him come back than he's risking a pretty serious injury. Like people who get calf strains like Kevin Durant tear their Achilles if they're rushed back too soon. He's kind of playing with fire, and it's not helping his game.
One for me, this isn't really one I don't think too many people were thinking about, is Bryce Young. I just don't feel like he's comfortable out there. I know there was that one clip that like, everybody's going to overreact to, but like, I don't, as a first overall pick, I don't really know if you want to see a quarterback like make that. It's a tiny, tiny mistake, but watching him, line up behind the wrong guy. I mean, I'm sure, if I was a quarterback, I'd probably line up behind the tight end, but like, but at the same time, it's just, he's a first overall pick and, making those types of mistakes, not looking comfortable against the Saints D line on Monday night a couple weeks ago. The Saints got a great defense, but at the same time, you want to see, your rookie quarterback, make those throws, evade those rushes. Sometimes I feel like he's not reading defenses too well. There were a couple plays with Miles Sanders or Chuba Hubbard where, it would be very clear that the right side of the line was kind of stacked, and you'd kind of have like a 3-on-2 situation over here with the offensive line and the defensive line with New Orleans, and he looks at it, but he like doesn't check out of it. He kind of just pats his right cheek and says we're still going with this, and Sanders gets stuck for -3, -5 yards, and and you kind of just see the difference with how the Panthers play, even though they got demolished against the Seahawks. Mingo, I can't remember his first name, but I think it's Jonathan. I'm not sure. Anyway, I thought he played a lot better. I mean, of course, Andy Dalton is a lot more experienced. Did I say Sam Darnold? I don't. Anyway, Andy Dalton is a lot more experienced, but at the same time, and I know it's early for Bryce Young, but I just feel like he's playing like Jimmy Garoppolo out there. Like he's just playing scared. He kind of has happy feet, and I don't know. That's not really something that you want to see from a first overall pick, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. The Panthers, I think they tried to give the best support system around Bryce to start this year.
Right.
And you've seen some of the good stuff, and you've also seen some of the growing pains. Mine is for actually like pretty similarly, even though he's not a rookie, he's another young quarterback. I think Justin Fields, I think what's going on in Chicago right now, it was almost like people forgot that the Bears had the number 1 pick last year for a reason, because their defense is just absolutely terrible. And, that's a big problem with the team. But when you see a lot of the tape on Justin Fields, it's not good. I mean, he's missing open guys. He holds onto the ball way too long. You see all the numbers about how many times he's been sacked and things like that. But, those aren't all on the offensive line. If you hold the ball for 7 seconds and you don't hit the first read or second read when it's open, I think that's pretty disappointing for a guy that I think is in his 3rd year now. So I'm just disappointed that there hasn't been significant growth with his consistency when he's passing. And a lot of the rushing numbers have kind of fallen off this year too, just because teams now are playing him to run. So I don't really know what the future is there, because if the Bears are this bad the rest of the season, they're going to be in prime position to get a number 1 or number 2 pick. And do they do the Josh Rosen and they say, hey, like, there's a better guy coming in the draft and we're just going to move on? Or, really, I'm curious to know what happens, because there's an argument to be made that another quarterback would have the same issues because the whole franchise is bad. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of these things are on Justin Fields too. So that's a disappointing one for me.
The frustrating part about both the quarterbacks that you and Christian mentioned is I feel like they're putting way too much pressure on themselves, and they got decent amount of weapons. Maybe Fields doesn't have the same amount or the same caliber weapons that Joe Burrow has, and neither of them have a great defense to fall back on. So it's almost like they have to put that pressure on themselves. They have to play hero or try to be hero.
I would argue that Justin Fields doesn't feel like it's on his shoulders when he's saying the coaches aren't setting him up for. Because if he was putting it on his shoulders, he would be taking responsibility for his mistakes, and he'd be like, I got to play better. But instead, he's basically like, the coaches got to coach better. But you could also argue by saying that he feels while he's playing, he has to. But mentally, I don't think he's putting anything else on his shoulders. I think he's thinking, well, if I was put in a better position, I wouldn't have to do the certain things. I think he admitted after the first game that they weren't playing him the same way they were last year. They were having him do different things now. They want him to be more of a pocket passer, and he implied that that's just not what he is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I like Justin Fields, by the way. Like Zach can attest, I've been a Justin Fields fan probably since he was at Ohio State. But the whole King of the North thing, the whole off season with Bears fans, and then they've turned on him 3 games in. It's like he's not any different than what he was. But Konnor might be right. It might not even be his fault, though. It might be just the organization is terrible.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say it's both.
I like what he said. Like, I mean, I get what he says about like, oh, it's coaching. I think it came out so wrong because it just sounds like he's blaming coaching. But what he's really trying to say is like, I'm not playing free, and I'm not just,
Doing what I like to do.
Yeah, or doing stuff with anticipation. It's more like, okay, I'm just playing so controlled and structured that, if something goes wrong, like I just feel like I can't improvise. But like you have to figure out a different way to say that, and instead of what he did. So instead of what he said. So yeah.
When guys say stuff like that, generally you like to think that they don't mean it that way, and I would agree, probably didn't, but it just comes off as like, dude, what are you saying?
For sure.
I saw this quote from a Bears fan on TikTok. He said that earlier this week, or definitely after the game, that Justin Fields definitely felt a little less robotic out there against the Chiefs, which is kind of odd considering he played. I thought he played a little better than he did against Tampa, considering the competition. But and then they showed like his passing chart. He had like a few passes way downfield. He was completing more. There's like 8 completions like at the line of scrimmage, but there was a few more completed passes past the first down marker. So I mean, hopefully it can only go up for here. I mean, you don't want to see a player with the potential and the talent of Justin Fields become the next Josh Rosen, because those 2 players are completely different and completely different attitudes as well. So,
do you think with the offseason moves and even going back to last year, adding Chase Claypool, do you think he was set up for success coming into this year?
No, Chase Claypool is a dumpster fire.
I think their offense is better, but I think the defense is still a big problem.
Well, what about they put a lot of investment into the defense, in the offseason, free agency, adding like Tremaine Edmonds and guys like that. They spent money this, offseason.
Yeah, that's fair.
What do you think's going wrong with that on the defensive side?
Well, I think in today's NFL, you can't spend big money on linebackers and expect to have a well-rounded defense. Like if you spend money on edge rushers and a top corner, I think that's how most successful teams do it. But if you start spending money on middle linebackers or even outside linebackers, unless they can play like a hybrid role, you severely like limit your resources on how the game is played. Now, I just don't think they spent their money in the right way to succeed in today's league.
Okay.
I think the DJ Moore acquisition was, just to go back briefly to the Chase Claypool thing, I think that was kind of to throw a Band-Aid on the mistake of trading for Chase Claypool. But I also agree with Konnor in today's NFL, like maybe 10, 15 years ago when guys like Ray Lewis were playing, you could do that, where you could spend money on a middle linebacker, but now I can't think. I think Fred Warner is the only one that comes to mind that's like really like a game-changing middle linebacker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought. Hold on.
True. I think that's a good point, because when they brought in like a few years back, they brought in Khalil Mack, and that's like a game-changing type player for them. Immediately they went to the playoffs. So I can see what you're saying there, Konnor. But one winning season for them since 2012. I remember reading today, it said since Lovie Smith was fired in 2012, they've had one winning season. So how much of this comes more so on the organization as well?
I think, I mean, there's a bunch of percentages of the blame to go around, but one percentage that you can clearly say half of it is on the organization. And then, like 5% on Justin Fields, 10, 20% on the coaching, and then everybody else. The Bears just, I was thinking this the other day, like, are they more of a sad organization than Cleveland was or is or ever was, or even Detroit? Like, yeah, they won a Super Bowl, but at the same time, it's kind of just like, they had that great defense. They've never had a great quarterback. They've never had a great receiver. They've never, it's always been about the defense. And when they don't have the defense, it's kind of just like they're one dimensional, really. And I don't think they've had really since Ditka, they've ever had a solid coach since then. And that was he left 87, 89, somewhere in there. So, I think that's another question that could be
Lovie Smith
debated.
took them to the Super Bowl. He was a decent coach. They just had a few down years and canned him, which maybe it would. That doesn't. I don't mean that to say like they should have given him more a shot, because I don't really remember how things were for the Bears back then. But
I mean,
you just maybe they should have taken a little longer to see what they had. Like the Colts and Jim Caldwell, they got, or not the Colts and Jim Caldwell, but the Lions. The Lions were good under him, and then they fired him because they felt like they weren't getting anywhere, and then they were even worse for the next 2 or 3 years. So sometimes, again, not saying Lovie Smith should have been given more of a chance, because I really don't even remember, but sometimes you make moves just because you think you should and you don't evaluate elsewhere. Like, not just, it's the first thing that comes to mind, but like the Vikings, I think the last 2 years in the draft free agency trades, they haven't really acquired the best personnel they could have, and that could be the thing with the Bears, is they don't have a general manager. Again, I'm 2 years in, but for both the Bears and Vikings, but maybe your just general manager isn't bringing in players that are right for the schemes your coaches are trying to draw up.
yeah.
Yeah, I think they're you can make an argument their best quarterback in history has been Jay Cutler, and like if you actually look at the numbers and like consider eras, you'd say Jay was their most productive quarterback, which probably isn't a good thing. But at the same time, I still think fans of Detroit and Cleveland would take a Super Bowl and two Super Bowl appearances and one title, just because if you think about the Lions specifically, they have like one playoff win since 1957, and it's not like they're even competitive in the other years. It's just they've kind of just been there. I think Chicago's problem is that for a while there was just too many guys in house that they kept recycling, and it's been a very like family oriented team, and like they haven't fully embraced until recently like the new wave of like data analytics and thinking outside the box to hire people that didn't have ties to the organization. So
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
And the NFL is such a nepotism league too. It's just hard for some teams to do that. Like the Patriots and Steve Belichick, when Mike Zimmer was here, him and Adam Zimmer. The Cowboys in their front office, Stephen Jones with Jerry Jones. Like, it's tough for some people to move on when that's the case.
Yeah, that's true. Have we gone on to disappointments? I know we were talking about the Bears, but
I think we finished them.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we finished them.
All right, Bears.
This is Burrow, Fields, and Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So obviously this past Sunday, Dolphins put up 70 against the Broncos. How serious do you consider Miami in terms of being a Super Bowl contender this year in the AFC?
It's tough because someone posted the other day that Tua is off to the same exact start statistically through the first 3 that he was last year, but I don't think the Dolphins were 3-0 at this point. And I think he got that first concussion in the third game too. So their offense is in a second year also under the same coach and all that. Everyone seems more comfortable. The Broncos are a bad team, and you can argue, well, that's why they blew them out, but nobody's been blown out like that since the 60s. So I think the Dolphins are a top 5 team in the NFL, and they might even be top 3, and they wouldn't be 2 or 3. But I'd consider them Super Bowl contenders.
I mean, for me, I think back on their schedule, and I'm just kind of, I don't want to sell them short, but they've played the Patriots, they played the Broncos, and they played the Chargers. That Chargers game was supposed to be, huge, but the Chargers really haven't shown me anything to where they're, one of the top teams in the NFL as of right now. Patriots are relatively around the same, relatively in the same boat, and Chargers and the Patriots are both 1-2, and the Broncos are 0-3. Again, I don't want to sell the Dolphins short, but I'm kind of curious to see how they play against teams like Kansas City, maybe Cincinnati late season. I mean, I don't even think they play any of those teams during the season. I mean, we have to see, them play mid-season Josh Allen, end of season Josh Allen, see what happens in those type of games. And then what they look like against the NFC opponent, I'm not sure. I think they play the NFC East. So what they do against teams like Dallas and teams like Philly, what will they look like then? But right now, I can't really answer that question. I mean, they certainly look like it. Yes, they got blown out, or they blew the Broncos out 70-20. And we've never really seen that in recent years. But at the same time, it's more so the fact that they just scored 70 points. Teams have blown out other teams by 50 plus before. So, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I'm impressed by the feat. It's just,
Okay.
Yeah,
You're saying.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are legit. They have an advantage every week when they line up to where they have at least one wide receiver and one running back that's going to be the fastest in the league. I saw some graph or stat that the 5 fastest players with the ball this season, and 3 or 4 of them are Dolphins or something like that. So they're always going to have that. I think the one thing that they really need to do is to get a home field advantage. I think that's going to matter for them more than any other team, because if they have to go to Kansas City, or if they have to go to Buffalo or Cincinnati, and the weather's blowing, it's 30-mile-an-hour winds blowing sideways, or rain or snow. I think there's ways that they can win that game, but they would much rather prefer to have the Florida winter weather. I think that's going to be a team that is more dependent on home field advantage just for the element purposes. Then it would impact them more than it would at a Kansas City or Buffalo. So I think that they're going to be gunning for the 1 seed. I think they can get it, but I think they need it, and if they want to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they have playing Buffalo this Sunday. I mean, that'd be a big test for them to see where they're at.
Well, Mike McDaniel wishes it were colder. Remember that shirt before the Buffalo game? He said, "I wish it were colder." Yeah. But I totally agree. They need a home field advantage, because you're not going to beat Kansas City in Kansas City. You might beat Buffalo in Buffalo, but I don't. The Bills have just sold themselves short in the playoffs. They haven't shown up when it really matters. And then Cincinnati, they've only had 2 playoff games in 2 years at home. So I don't really know what I would consider, if I'd consider them a great home field advantage or not. But the weather could change that for sure in an instant.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think, the interesting thing for me is we didn't see what that team even last year was capable of with Tua healthy. They went into the playoffs with Skylar Thompson, and they had really good performances last year with Mike McDaniel. So that's the thing for me that's I'm most enticed about, is what's the potential for this team? How far can they reach? Who was it? Who was their running back? Had 4 touchdowns that not many people even knew about on Sunday.
A-Chain.
A-Chain.
Yeah, like
Zach had to remind me of his name on Sunday. I'm not even gonna ask. Like, I
Someone-
definitely knew that right off the
Some-
dome.
Someone in our fantasy league drafted him in like the 14th round, and I was like, okay.
I talked to some guy at work who said he wanted to draft him in his league, and then someone else got him right before he was going to pick him. So I guess some people were like aware he was going to be not like this good. I
Stats
mean, he
people,
could end up.
probably.
He could. Yeah, I mean, he could end up laying an egg for the rest of the season. We don't know, but there were people that apparently had kind of their eye on him. So
Yeah.
do you guys still see, like, this is off topic kind of, but do you guys still see like Jonathan Taylor potentially going there in the trade?
No.
Miami, no,
They
I
don't.
think
they were-
I don't think he's going to play this year.
Okay.
the Dolphins are smart. They kind of go with what they have. They kind of keep their mojo going. I feel like I'm not saying Jonathan Taylor going. It would just be a huge like media uproar, and I think it would just kind of be a distraction. Or what does Jonathan Taylor add to this team? Oh, we're just gonna, he's on the field now. We're just gonna keep doing what we're doing, like, all that stuff. And I think it would just kind of put a lot more pressure on Tua, even though Tua is as cool as a cucumber, but I feel like it would just create a little bit of too much of a media storm. The expectations would be higher, and I don't know. I think they should just roll with what they have right now. I think they're set unless Mostert gets injured, which is, at some point in the season you can see it happening. But as of right now, not really. I don't think they should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit what they do either. I just don't think like his style of running is kind of what they do. They always want these because if you watch like Kyle Shanahan's offenses and stuff like that, like they need guys that are like the track star running backs to like drag the defense one way and then hit the hole really quickly. And Jonathan Taylor, like he's fast, don't get me wrong, but he's more like closer to like the Derrick Henry type of runner where like he just wants to get point A to point B downhill. I just he'll be good for them if the Dolphins want to go that route, but like there's a reason they drafted A-Chain or A-Chan, however you say it, because he's fast. I mean, at Texas A&M he was really good. So if Mostert gets hurt, I think they'll try to replace him with what they have first, and if that doesn't work, then maybe. But I also just don't think they want to give up draft compensation either.
Right. Yeah. And another thing is the Dolphins are kind of McDaniel's trying to incorporate like a positionless type game, and I don't think Taylor even fits that either. Taylor's more of a downhill, like in your face runner. He's not really too much of a receiver out of the backfield. So I think, and they're more so a speed back type team, not a power back type team like Taylor. So I just don't think it would be a fit at this point.
Okay. On the other side of that game, there's the Broncos who, there was some expectation on them to be at least, a little bit better, bringing in Sean Payton, another year of Russ. There was, obviously good things to hear about in training camp with them. So what do you think's going wrong thus far with the Broncos at, 0-3 right now?
Sean Payton can't coach a team without putting bounties on other players and without having a Hall of Fame quarterback. Well, Russell Wilson's a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I hate Sean Payton, so I was just really happy that happened.
I just think it's really funny that they're like this bad. That's what I've been laughing at. Like with
Sean
Russ
Payton's
and
such a
everything.
D-bag. I'm so okay with what happened, man. I feel bad for Russell Wilson. I like Russell Wilson. But God, it couldn't have happened to a better. Does anyone? Zach, I think does. Does anyone else know who Chris Thomason is?
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh my God, it was so great. Him and Zimmer used to go at it at post-game press conferences, and then on the offseason, Thomason switched from being on the Vikings beat for the Pioneer Press to being for the Broncos beat for someone in Colorado, and Payne's like, "Oh, I know it's bad, but."
What's your question?
I've been on the other. Yeah, what's your? Sean Payton was like, I've been on the other end of that before. Obviously, not that bad. This is very different. And then Thomason's just like, so how do you feel after? Yeah, I already said how I feel. Yeah, but obviously, like you said, it's embarrassing. It's a historic loss. What's your question? Which, by the way, as funny as it was, that was really bad reporting on Thomason's part. Like.
Yeah, you already got those
Just
quotes.
super unprofessional, but so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Denver is an interesting team because I felt like there was this Super Bowl expectation since they got Russ, even though there was still some questions about their offensive line, which they really haven't fixed, and their defensive line, which can come and go, especially after they traded Bradley Chubb. So I just think like the core of their team isn't where it needs to be, even though the skill positions, you have some talent, and running back room, you have some talent. They just got gashed like over and over again. And them hiring Vance Joseph, I like, he was their head coach, didn't work. I get like trying him as a coordinator, but I mean, that's just the kind of stuff that like gets you, in bad graces around the league, just because, your reputation, if you give up games like this, I'm not saying they're going to do this every week, but it looks bad for the coaching staff as a whole because, the Dolphins backups were in and they were still getting 70 yards. It wasn't like they're, Mike McDaniel just wanted to run up the score and they're throwing 80-yard passes. Like they were just trying to chew clock, and like every single run was going for 20 yards or more. So it was kind of just like, did the team quit on its coaching staff? That's what it looked like to
I
me.
think so.
Like, it's just like, I don't know how you even like, let's say the Broncos put in backups. Like they didn't even put in backups really until the very end. Like Patrick Surtain was getting burnt by Robbie Chosen. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like at some point it has to be like a deep kind of conversation about what's really going wrong. I don't know. That's something that only the Broncos can answer. But yeah, I don't know. It's bad there right now.
I mean, I'm sorry. All of the stuff that I've seen on social media, like Broncos Country, Let's Ride, and like Sports Authority Field or whatever the hell it's called now, is just like on fire. And he's wearing his chef's hat, and then like the picture with PS2 today, and like all the Alabama players, and he's just like,
Yeah.
Oh, I
Like,
saw
it's
that. I didn't see that
it's-
till the day, but he looked pissed.
like, I feel so bad for Patrick Surtain. That's the only person I feel bad for because he's too good to, if there's one person that like, you feel like they're getting their career wasted, like aside from, no disrespect, of course, Justin Jefferson, like you feel like it's on the verge of getting wasted anyway. It's Pat Surtain. Like you're kind of worried about, where his career is going to go from here. But, all this, like, it's so bad in Denver. I mean, the game on Sunday with the Broncos and the Bears, I'm really hoping that it's so bad it's good, kind of like the movie The Room, if any of you have ever seen that, where we kind of just sit there and kind of just laugh all game, kind of just like I was doing like an idiot for the past 5 minutes. But, I mean, that's what the NFL is, man. It's a show. It's fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. Denver also, just because I lived there for a good amount of years, like it's a pretty passionate fan base, and the media isn't overly hard on the Broncos if they're struggling, but there's also like a couple guys like Mark Kislev of the Denver Post, because they have a couple of those like guys that just look to stir up stuff. It's bad. Like what I've been told, since I just moved from there, but I've been told by people that still live there, like the talk radio is just like beside themselves now. It's like they've gotten to the point where like it's just like nonstop Broncos, like organization's terrible. And you remember they got new ownership recently, so we'll see. I mean, like I don't know how patient that ownership group's going to be after spending like a record fee, before the Commanders are bought. To they're not going to put up with this like to start their ownership. So we'll see how long Sean Payton's there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was the worst loss Colorado had seen since the previous 24 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is true.
that's true.
Getting waxed left and right. At least they have the Nuggets.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I feel
The Vikings, if the Vikings and Gophers were getting waxed every Saturday and Sunday, and the Wolves had just won the finals, I could get over it.
Yeah. I mean, they have the Avalanche too. Like they're pretty good. But
Yeah. Anyway,
I feel like the Broncos, like, yeah, they have a lot of, I guess, the more like star power you'll see on the offensive side. But I feel like their defense, it's still like a underrated unit coming into the year, in my opinion. And then I think Vance Joseph has done a good job at defensive coordinator in his career. So I thought it would actually work out, bringing him, back. Obviously was head coach there. You don't see that too often, but I thought it would kind of work out for them. So I definitely wasn't expecting obviously, that performance, but I wasn't expecting them to be like this bad early on, especially with Sean Payton. But yeah, just my biggest shock is like nothing is really changing from Nathaniel Hackett's era, in my opinion. So
They were 2-1 at this point with Nathaniel Hackett last year. I saw that stat today too. Yeah.
I guess
So
it's just they're building on, they're continuing what Nathaniel Hackett finishes era
Right.
there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well,
I guess,
yeah. And what I want to continue, with Hackett it got worse. Maybe with Payton it gets better. You never know.
yeah. I think it's still early, of course, like we're always saying, but it's it's not great to start with. And
dang it, I picked
That
Denver
ride
as
is a
my
bumpy
second
one.
seed.
I mean, Denver is an enticing option. Like they have they always have the Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton.
They have talent, and their coach is like, as much as I hate the guy, will probably end up being a Hall of Fame coach. So it was a fair enough thing to assume that they would be a playoff team. They're just fucking abysmal for some reason.
I don't think Denver's organization, like around as a whole, I think they have a rich history, from their inception back when they came into the AFL. It took them that whole 60s era to get going. They were pretty relevant in the 70s. They went to the Super Bowl. And then, during the 80s, they kind of fell off. And then in the 90s, well, not in the 80s, they fell off. I mean, they went to a couple Super Bowls in the 80s. And then, in the 90s, they finally got there. I mean, they've had, pretty much a lot of success from mid-80s till about mid-2010s. And, maybe, every organization goes through those periods of time just to where they're not, a good football team. But in my opinion, I think the Broncos are still a very good organization. I mean, new ownership is definitely going to change how things are run, and then what kind of morale is around that building. But it's still hilarious to watch.
Yeah, I think John Elway just left too, right?
Yeah, I think last year.
Yeah, not too long. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like the GM kind of before, but then he just stepped down because it wasn't. He whiffed on one too many quarterbacks for him to get the job anymore. It was like Brock Osweiler and Paxton Lynch; those are all his picks.
Right.
So at some point you got to turn over.
Simeon.
Yeah, you got to turn it over to somebody else. But and I agree with what Zach's saying. They've kind of been like the Steelers of the Rocky Mountains. They've been so steady. Not quite as steady as the Steelers, but they haven't been an embarrassment. They've never had to my knowledge, a 1-in-15 season. They don't really ever get that bad, and they're always competitive. The 80s, they made Super Bowls, the 90s, they made Super Bowls, AFC Championship games in the 2000s. So, then obviously the Super Bowl in the 2010s. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because they have so much money owed to Russ. I just don't know how you can pay a quarterback that much if you're not going to win. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to be a couple more years to kind of where they're like this. I think Russ kind of traded himself to a bad situation because you got rookie owners, sophomore owners, rookie GM, rookie head coach to you. I mean, it's going to be a little bit of time before they're going to be, scary again. But they still could, it's still early, and Sean Payton's still a good coach. Russ is still a great quarterback. They still have all the weapons. I mean, you never know what could happen.
Dude, Sunday was the worst thing I've ever watched on screen involving Sean Payton since that horrendous movie on Netflix he put out a few years ago.
Kevin James meme too.
That's good. I heard, yeah, it was Kevin James played him, right, in that movie?
Yeah, I got it was an okay movie, but man, why was Kevin James playing Sean Payton?
Yeah, I don't really see the resemblance at all.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything specific about the difference between the two. They just don't look alike to me.
Okay, what's another thing we can kind of shift to?
Taylor Swift. No, I'm joking.
Oh God, please no. Please no.
Kirk Cousins.
We won't go there. Let's do the
I said
Kirk
for content. Kirk Cousins. All right.
go to Kirk Cousins. What are you guys' thoughts with that whole situation? A couple of reports about the Jets being interested in Kirk Cousins. I guess how soon do you ever see that becoming a realistic option for both sides?
If the Vikings lose Sunday in Carolina, I think they start talking to Kirk about waiving his no trade clause, because I know any given Sunday in the NFL, we just watch the Cardinals beat the Cowboys at home. But if you lose to the Panthers, you're 0-4, and then you're coming back home to play the Chiefs at home, and then after that you're going on the road to play the Bears, which, regardless of how bad the Bears are, the Vikings never play well in Soldier Field. It just doesn't matter. They just, in 2017, they were a game away from going to the Super Bowl, but that year on Monday Night Football, they made Mitchell Trubisky in his first start look like he was going to be an all-pro quarterback. So you're looking at, I seriously doubt they lose to the Bears, but it's definitely possible. So then you're looking at 0-6 at that point, and then you come back home and you got the Niners. So you could be, if you don't get your ducks in a row, you could be looking at 0-7. So I think if you lose against the Panthers, so if they lose Sunday, I think they start talking to him. They're like, hey, you're not under contract next year. We can move you to what could be a better team. You'll still get paid. We'll get something in return for you. And then at that point, if you convince him, you just suck the rest of the year and you get your pick. If you don't get the first pick, you're not getting Caleb Williams. I don't care who has the first pick. That's where he's going. But then you have the option of Drake May. Drake May is going to be a baller, I think. If you fall into the top 5, you can end up with him. But you're not going to end up in the top 5 if you have Kirk Cousins at quarterback, because as much as people want to shame him, he's not a bad enough quarterback for a team to win less than 7 games with him.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, but when we did our week 1 pod, I kind of like slipped in like a long-term, I don't even know if it's bold anymore, but like a long-term bold prediction that like this would be Kirk's last year as a Viking. Because when I said that, because when you look at his contract, like, are they really going to want to extend him like into his late 30s, early 40s if you're not getting like a Tom Brady? Like, okay, if he's going to make us a Super Bowl contender if he's here, like that type of thing. And like Christian was saying, like you can't be 0-6 or whatever, or 0-5 with the expensive quarterback. Because let's be honest, like as good as Kirk is Kirk good enough to carry a Vikings defense that has been bottom third for a couple years now? The answer is probably no. So if you have a chance,
kind of did last year, but they had the ball bounce their way more than they should have. So
yeah, it's like he came for a couple games. I just don't know if he's like consistently the guy like Aaron Rodgers.
No, definitely not.
Like he carried Green Bay's defenses for years. But yeah, if you have a chance at somebody like Caleb Williams or Drake May, more so Caleb, but he kind of fits the timeline more with like the ages of like Justin Jefferson anyway. So you have to seriously entertain those conversations. But I don't know, like when was the last time like a semi-big name quarterback like that was traded mid-season? I just don't remember.
I don't know even if he made it to free agency, I can't remember besides himself. Well, I guess you could argue Tom Brady, but I can't remember last time. Well, you can't argue Tom Brady, it was him. But besides Tom Brady, I can't remember the last time since last time Cousins was a free agent that there was a starter caliber quarterback on the market like that in free agency in general too.
You had Peyton Manning way back in 2012, but that was more so because the Colts really thought his career was done. Yeah, and they had Andrew Luck waiting, so it was much easier to move off of him because Andrew Luck was right there. But that's kind of like everything had to align perfectly for that to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Like that isn't at all what will happen now, and anyone who's thinking that it's kind of silly. But maybe they decide we won't suck this year, we'll suck next year. But the front office for Minnesota doesn't really seem like they have any plans at quarterback or the offensive line. And let me tell you what, they're going to need a plan at quarterback past Kirk Cousins, whether or not he's extended behind that O-line. Because if he's still on the team, he's going to get hurt. He did last year, and he played through it. And you won't get that lucky every time. He's a durable guy, but everybody and their ligaments and bones has their literal breaking point. So I just think the front office just doesn't really have a plan past tomorrow when it comes to that.
In my opinion, this is what I think the Vikings should do. I think they should trade Kirk as soon as possible for a second and third round pick to the Jets. It wouldn't be like a long-term solution for the Jets. You know, it kind of just be like Kirk showcasing himself, showing that he's capable of taking a team to the playoffs. Moving off of that, that's kind of just the scenario that I wanted to do. And then he'd obviously go somewhere else next season, a quarterback needy team, other than the Vikings, of course. That would be weird. Anyway, what I think, and then go all defense in this next draft, because that's clearly more of a need than the quarterback position right now. I don't think Drake May would be an answer for the Vikings. I mean, it'd be a good pick, but at the same time, I think you should just spend picks on D lineman. Like defensive tackle is abysmal. Who's that guy they have from the Bills, 97, who has that weird face mask?
Harrison Phillips.
Harrison Phillips is horrendous.
That guy's a disaster.
They need to draft more cornerbacks. They need to get a safety replacement for Harrison. I mean, linebackers since Kendricks departed and Barr departed have been awful. All defense next year, and then I hope you guys don't hate me for saying this, but tank for Shadur in 2025.
I mean, the thing with the Vikings is like, since this new regime came in, the drafts have been pretty bad. Like, if you look top to bottom, I remember Lewis Cine, right?
You know how many snaps he's played this year? I think it was either this whole season or just last Sunday, but either way,
it's bad.
He played 0. None. He didn't. At least on Sunday, he didn't play at all. I don't think he's. I can't remember if he's played at all this year.
He played 0 snaps on Sunday. They traded back in a position where they could have got Kyle Hamilton, who the Ravens picked. They traded back for they felt like Lewis Cine is on par safety with Kyle Hamilton for some reason, and they took Kyle Hamilton.
Well, here's the thing. I'll give Lewis Cine the benefit of the doubt. For some reason weren't playing him anywhere else but special teams, and then he had just an absolutely terrible, bad luck injury, and I think they're just worried he's not what. But still, he's not even at his healthiest. I don't think I wouldn't have thought he was better than Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, it's just I know he has the the injury last year was tough against the Saints, but like I still think that was a bad decision. And then you got Andrew Booth, who I think you took in the second round, who barely is playing because he's injury prone thus far anyway. I
had all my chips in the middle of the table for Andrew Booth. I was so confident. He looked so good in college. I picked him to be Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. But, I mean, I wanted to be bold with that, but hey.
You could argue the best move this front office has made in their entire 2 years so far is signing Ivan Pace as an undrafted free agent.
Or just the T.J. Hawkinson trade, maybe.
The T.J. Hawkinson trade essentially traded nothing for him. I think they swapped second-round picks and got T.J. Hawkinson. I don't think they really even gave anything up for him.
Yeah, it's the best move that they've made. Yeah.
And then I'm thinking about all these linemen the Vikings drafted. I think this regime drafted Ed Ingram, who he hasn't
second-round pick.
He hasn't been great. And then not this regime, but prior regimes picked up Brian O'Neill, and then you have Ezra Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury, and then I think
Bradbury's a disaster when he's playing.
I think they picked up Darisaw too. Like Spielman picked up Darisaw, so that's the only bright spot right now. So
Spielman picked Jeff Gladney instead of Antoine Winfield Jr. And even when Gladney was playing well, I still didn't forgive Spielman for that. Because Gladney for his rookie year before things went kind of haywire the following years. respectfully.
Yeah.
He wasn't as good as I know. He was a corner and Winfield's a safety, but I felt like we needed safety help, and I was just like, I'll never forgive Spielman for that. That was my least favorite of all the moves. It was not picking Winfield.
Yeah, it's just tough. Like the Vikings have been unable to really like identify, guys, young guys for, long-term projects. In the past, even I think Spielman did a good job of getting guys like that would stay long-term, like Xavier Rhodes, guys like who am I forgetting? Eric Hendricks, Harrison Smith. He'd even identify guys like Anthony Harris. I feel like Trey Waynes was solid.
Diggs in the 5th round, Daniil Hunter in the 4th, Jerick McKinnon I think was a 3rd or 4th round pick.
Yeah, it's just like the Vikings right now, like they have not a lot of young talent that you can look to the future and be like, outside of Jefferson, like this guy we can see as a future piece, like similar to Harrison Smith, who's been with the Vikings for more than 10 years now. So I think even when you put all your chips into like going for the draft and going all defense, like that's obviously, not for anybody that it's a guarantee, but definitely for the Vikings, they haven't shown enough proof that like that will even go right. So I just have concerns about them, kind of messing up this future that we have with Justin Jefferson, because if you do want to go, with a young quarterback temporarily, it can't be something that's like too much of a struggle for the Vikings, because you do want to maximize the talent that they do have right now. And the second that they do like go for a full-on rebuild, that's when I feel like some of our current like good players might want to get out of here.
Well, here's the other side of what we started this conversation off with too. It's like on topic but off topic. Do the Jets think that they can get back on track and that they're good enough to make the playoffs if they make that trade for Cousins?
I mean, yeah, Kirk Cousins is playing like the best quarterback in the league right now based off the numbers. So
that defense
yeah,
is like, call me crazy, but like I think people aren't paying attention if they wholeheartedly disagree, but that defense is a Super Bowl defense. If you have a solid enough offense, that defense can get you to a Super Bowl. They have arguably the best cornerback tandem in the NFL. They have one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. CJ Mosley is a fantastic linebacker. Robert Saleh is a genius on the defensive side of the ball. Like that defense can get you to Super Bowl, but if you're the Jets, do you think you're too far gone? And do you trust a quarterback coming in mid-season to learn your offense and everything to get you back on track and take you to the playoffs?
It's hard.
Yeah. Go ahead, Konnor.
I just saying it's hard to do that. That's why it doesn't. I mean, I asked before, like when was the last time a quarterback got traded mid-season, and I think the reason for that is like most teams don't want to do it, but also like trying to learn an offense. It's hard to do that in training. Just to have one training camp and do that, but to do it mid-season when you have to go out there week after week. The one example I did come up with as I was thinking about it was when Carson Palmer sat out with Cincinnati and he was not playing for like 4 or 5 weeks, and then the Raiders were so desperate because Jason Campbell got hurt, and they just brought Carson Palmer off the couch, and then they started playing him, and like the first couple of weeks were like really bad. I mean, you could just tell like he was so rusty, but then it kind of got its rhythm after that. But I mean, I don't know if Kirk Cousins will look that bad because he's been playing and playing well, but it would take him a couple of weeks to get used to it. And the Jets, I think the Jets would do it anyway, but there wouldn't really be a lot of precedence for it. So
it would take such a twisted fate of dumb luck for Kirk Cousins too, because this year is the first time I think it isn't since either coming to Minnesota or since the year before coming to Minnesota that he would have had the same playbook for the second year in a row. And then if they trade him, it's just kind of like, well, fuck, I have to do it again.
One more example of a quarterback getting traded midseason. I mean, he was a backup at the time, but he finished out the season undefeated. Was Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017 with the 49ers.
Right too, yeah.
I think they ran.
When did he get traded? Like, was that like week
at the
4?
deadline? I think
it was on Halloween 2017.
Oh, I didn't even realize it was that deep into the season. Wow.
Yeah, I always look back at that, and for some reason, I feel like they did that with like 4 games in, but obviously the deadline isn't that long. So did he start right away, or did they give it a few weeks?
I think he sat for 3 games, two
He
and a
played
half
really
games.
well that year, though.
Yeah, he balled.
I know he went into like 1 game because I think they were getting beaten so badly. They were so awful that year, and I don't remember how he performed in that game. But he played half a game and they lost, and then he started the rest of the season and they were 5-0.
Yeah.
So they went, yeah. So after
And they
trading for Jimmy
extended him.
Garoppolo, yeah.
I think they extended him when they traded for him. Like, I think they did all that at once, didn't they? It was kind of like Deshaun Watson, how the Browns traded for him, and like at the introductory press conference, they announced that not only that, but they had given him a big contract. It was kind of like the same thing. They're like, yeah, we traded for him, and on top of that, we gave him this massive contract for 2 starts of it, 2 starts he's made in his entire career.
I feel like Jimmy played like 1 full game and then they extended him, but I don't really remember. I mean, it wouldn't put me past.
I could be wrong.
I wouldn't put it past Lynch to offer him or to extend him before he's even really touched the field. But, I mean,
It wasn't really mid-season. It was. I mean, it wasn't. It was right the week before the season started. But when the Vikings traded for Bradford after Bridgewater wrecked his knee, he sat for a week, and then he played against the Packers basically on a week and a half of learning the playbook and balled out against them. And he had a really good year that year. The rest of the team just sucked. I don't like talking about that year, but like it happens. Just I don't think it's ever really happened where it's been a starter that's in the MVP race getting traded 5+ weeks into the season.
Yeah, that doesn't happen that often, but I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. I think Kirk is definitely gonna, the way he's playing right now is gonna earn another decent payday into his 30s. So I think at the level he's at right now, he's 33, right? I would assume
33 or 34 here.
I don't know how many years you want to give him, but I mean he's playing at a really high level. So
I would give it 4 years, 120. That's what I'd pay him right now.
Okay.
35. He just turned 35 last August.
I think a team like Atlanta is going to give that to him if the rest of the year goes as they do.
Atlanta. I mean, they got Desmond Ritter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't really been watching too much of Atlanta. I've been paying close attention to Bijan because before the season I was like, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be so much better than Bijan. But I mean, Bijan had an underwhelming game this past Sunday against the
Lions.
The Lions, yeah.
I don't even know how he's doing statistically, but I see his clips of him all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's balling or not.
I like clips a lot. I think he's kind of sharing the backfield with Algier,
which is what I said would happen.
It's so conservative. Like I was watching the whole Lions game that they played this last week, and it's just like they have guys like the Pitts will have a good catch and Bijan will have a good catch, and then you just don't see him for the next 20 minutes, and it's like I just don't understand
what
what's going on. Yeah, it's like they'll have like a good run and then they'll get subbed out, or Pitts will like have like a good gain, and then he just doesn't get targeted. Same thing with Drake London. Like they just ignore guys for like 2.5, 3 quarters. It's really bizarre. I don't know if it's a coach's play calling or what, but it's not good for fantasy. That's for sure.
Pitts had an average tight end fantasy game on this past Sunday.
He always does.
Yeah, I think he usually gets like 3 points, and you're like, I spent a 6th-round pick on this guy. But like, I don't know. I was pretty impressed with. I wish I got that from one of the tight ends in my league. I think all my tight end position is so bad in fantasy, and so is the RB2. You can't get a consistent one, but it is what
unless
it is.
You have like Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews, who's consistently getting fed the ball.
And then all your receivers.
Hawkinson's the number 1 right now.
Yeah, Hawkinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody rushes.
Oh yeah.
Vikings fans rush into their fantasy things right now.
Hawkinson's definitely producing in fantasy, but that drop at the end of the game, that's inexcusable.
I want to like Hawkinson. This last game pissed me off so fucking much. The fumble at the beginning and the drop at the end.
Tough game, in reality, but fantasy wise,
Yeah, he's human.
he's doing good in fantasy. But moving on from that, we can probably there's some other things I wanted to talk about. There's been some talk about that short yardage quarterback run play that the Philadelphia Eagles do. A lot of teams, haven't been able to stop it. Whether it's on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, more often than not, it's a conversion. So, what are your guys' thoughts on that play so far in terms of like,
I think
whether other teams should maybe implement it, or there's been people saying you should get banned. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that play is here to stay. I think it's just gonna be one of those things that everybody's gonna complain about.
Okay.
Until someone suffers a serious injury or there's a pattern of injuries during that play, it's not going to happen. They're not going to ban it until that happens. So that's kind of just my thoughts with it. It's just going to be, yeah.
Well, Richard Sherman was on TV saying, or like on his Twitter, I don't even know where he said this, but he's saying that there's like an inconsistency in the rule where they ban you from pulling guys into the end zone, where like if you are in front of a player and I think you like pull him forward, I think that's like not allowed, and you'll get a penalty for that, but like you can push guys. So he's saying that by the letter of the law, like any additional movement by another player like should be disallowed, but they're allowing it if you push instead of pull. So I don't know. I think it like, really, I mean, a lot of teams QB sneak, and it's on them to copy. If you see it's working, it's on them to copy and try to do it. But the problem is most teams don't have Jalen Hurts, who's basically like a linebacker body playing quarterback, and they also don't have Jason Kelsey and like these interior linemen. Like those guys are responsible for why that play works. It's not so much the pushing, because Jalen Hurts is like very, like if he needs like an inch or a yard or something like that, I mean, I don't really know how you stop that, because like he just is going to barrel forward. So I think it's here to stay unless something happens where the rules committee gets enough people complaining and there's too much peer pressure to do it. But I think you'll probably see it. So yeah,
I think it's
I
kind of
agree.
I think it's kind of weird that like you can't pull but you can push, because I feel like I don't know.
Yeah, what's the difference?
I'm still trying to
It's another person trying to get someone further. Like,
that's what Sherman was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking from like an injury standpoint, but like I feel like it's much safer for someone to pull somebody, because if you're pushing somebody, I feel like there's more risk for like an injury, especially like a neck injury or something, or like a back injury. I don't like that's so weird.
I think people, and I apologize if anyone in here doesn't dislikes that play. I hate the Eagles as much as the next person, maybe more than the next person. But I think if people are mad about it, they're just salty it works. You don't want them to get in that position, don't let them get in that position. You want them to not do it, stop them from being able to do it. I'm sorry, but they found a wrinkle in the rule book, and until it's not there, they should be allowed to do it. I don't think they should change the rule. I think they should take the pulling thing out of it. If you want to make it consistent, say you can pull someone, but someone also posted a clip. They were like, how Jalen Hurts gets in the end zone, and it was that play. And then they were like, how Cam Newton got into the end zone, and it was him hurdling a guy. It's like, okay, well, Cam Newton was hurt how often? How many games has Jalen Hurts missed? Like, I get what you're trying to say, but that's stupid. Also, the name of the game is to score more points than the other team to win the game. And that is a way they are legally scoring points to win the game. Are you going to just say, like, well, we don't have a Justin Jefferson and a Kirk Cousins. We have Gardner Minshew, and I know that there's Michael Pittman's good, but just make up a receiver. And so we can't throw a long ball. That should be disallowed because we can't stop it and we can't do it. Like, sorry, I guess. Like, I think it's, again, I hate the Eagles more than the next person, but you're just crying about something you can't stop if you don't like it.
I think it's also like the reason why people are complaining about it is just it's from like an assistance standpoint. Like if a player's going to score, they should be able to score on their own, if that makes any sense.
But then you start telling people you can't block because you're not getting in the end zone on your own if people are blocking for you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I just think complaining about it is a little silly. I think it's just people being salty. They're so far doing everything within the rules, and if you can't stop it, I mean, tough. It is what it is. It's like what Cam Newton said when people got mad about him dancing in the end zone. Don't let me get in the end zone. You don't want them to QB sneak against you. Don't let them get into third and inches. Don't let them get into fourth and inches. Don't let them get into the 1 inch line from the end zone. I mean, I don't know, man. They wouldn't do it if you didn't put them in position to do it. Then they keep doing it because you can't stop it, and you're mad about that. Like, you're just mad at yourself.
I think from like a fan
I
perspective,
don't know, man.
like fans will be frustrated at those sort of things because it's like, you know, a lot of times in game situations you'll get those 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, and you know traditionally you might like, you know, run the running back up the middle, and then they might get stuffed. So it's not always like a guarantee you get those 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1 conversions, but like with them, it's almost a guarantee that they're gonna push. They're gonna get a push out of the offensive line. They're gonna get a push from Jalen Hurts at least a yard to convert. And especially when they're doing that on the in a no huddle, it's very hard to kind of prepare for that mid game. So
and it's good strategy. It's like when people would complain about Belichick coming up with all these different things and formations and stuff. It's like, well, as long as he's within the rules and it's working, you're only mad because he's beating you with it. Like if the Vikings were doing that to people, the QB sneak push, I'd be happier than hell about it. I think if all these other fans had teams, their team was able to do it, they'd be like, "Why are you telling me it can't be legal? Why should we make this illegal? It's perfectly fine." Like it's just because it's being done to them.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I feel like other teams should even try to, you know, copy or like mimic that because, you know, I remember the Vikings, you know, they were on the goal line, you know, on the other team's one. I think it was against Buffalo. It was before that Buffalo fumbled the snap, you know, in the end zone last year.
Yeah, Cousins took the wheel himself and called that play himself.
Yeah, and he couldn't even get an inch. It was less than a yard. Like he couldn't even get an inch. So I'm like, if they had that push play, that's a guaranteed touchdown for the Eagles. So it's just like, I think teams should be trying to, you know, mimic that until the league does say something about it. But yeah, I think credit to Philly and Sirianni for even like thinking of that sort of play because it's not your traditional QB sneak that's been around, but they're doing it in a little bit of a different way that maximizes, you know, their big guys in the interior, like Konnor was saying, and you know, obviously Jalen Hurts' size. So.
Yeah, the whole. Oh, sorry, Zach. Go ahead.
My only complaint with it is that it just kind of kills the suspense of a quarterback sneak, in my opinion. But I mean, you know, it is what it is. It works. It works.
And then the other thing, like Konnor mentioned, like other teams not having, like he is the size of a linebacker, Jalen Hurts, just not having a quarterback able to make that push. Well, it's not illegal for like other players to line up under center. Like if you didn't want, like Mahomes could do it. He's a pretty decently sized guy, but you could put Travis Kelce under center and have him go and have guys push him. Like he's taking snaps under center. If I were the Vikings and you wanted to do that, have CJ Ham and Garrett Bradbury spend 10 minutes of practice taking snaps and have CJ Ham push that line on 4th and goal. Like, I know teams won't do that. I know some would be like, okay, that's a little ridiculous, but it's like the Eagles found a way to have an advantage, so do your best to figure out a way to get an advantage. Like the Patriots tried that, like putting a guy in motion on blocking field goals. 4 teams did it over the weekend, I'm pretty sure. Like they're like, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. You don't have a quarterback big enough, put your fullback under center. Imagine Kyle Juszczyk running right behind Trent Williams on a push. Like the 49ers would be just as unstoppable doing it. Josh Allen's a big guy. He could do it.
Yeah.
If the Raiders had kept Darren Waller, they could have put him under center and have him go over. He's 10 feet tall. He could just trip forward. He would have gotten a first down.
Yeah. There's like a bunch of things you can honestly do in short yardage situations, but I think the frustration that comes with this is like how effective it is for them. So I see why it's frustrating, and like
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
I see why there's a lack of suspense with that because it's going to be a conversion more often than not. But like, it's kind of like if you have like say you have a short yardage situation, and it's like you put Tyreek Hill in motion, and like he already has like a running start on his route.
I
And you
saw that too. Someone pointed that out.
like that's super hard to stop. Or like the Packers used to do it with Aaron Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Like that's super hard to stop. It's you can even sometimes some teams put like a lineman eligible to catch a pass, and they have them all in the formation, but the lineman goes ready to catch a pass and nobody's expecting it. It's kind of like those sort of things. It's like
Just find little wrinkles you can try out.
Yeah, it's been going on. Teams are trying to find those little wrinkles, but I think this is just a very effective one. More often than not, is going to be a conversion. So I'm surprised even that teams haven't tried to like
figure out their own
like
way to do it,
or find something close. That they can like copy and do their own thing until rules committee does step in. But
yeah, and if they do, fine. Like I'm not going to be like, oh well, now like I'm not going to be like they shouldn't have done that. If they decided for whatever reason you can't do that, fine. It is what it is. But while it's legal, I think if you're mad at it, it's just you just feel like you're left behind a little bit on it, and you feel like you're getting done dirty, and you're just really not. They just found something that works.
I don't know if you guys saw like that one guy on the Barstool Sports stream that was kind of like he's a Bucks fan, and it was like he said at this point like I don't mind, we might have to injure Jalen Hurts. I was just like, yo,
that sounds familiar, but I don't know that if I thought of it. That's wild.
That's
Chris
just
that, I think, or somebody.
That's
that
just
goes back to what I was saying. Like, it's not going to get. I don't think it's ever going to change until somebody gets like really badly injured.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with that. I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that. But overall, with Philly, real quick, do you guys think they're undefeated right now? One of two NFC teams undefeated. Do you guys think that Philly's kind of back to their form from a season ago, or do you think it's still not quite there yet?
I don't think it's
close,
quite there
I don't
yet.
think they're there yet. Yeah,
I'm not as impressed as I was last season.
Okay.
I don't think they're scoring as many points.
I think
somebody
it's
pointed
close.
out that Philly and San Francisco both are undefeated, and they're not even playing their best football yet.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah, I think Philly, they'll be all right. I think, I don't know. There's a lot of, now everybody knows what they are, so that element of, I guess, surprise isn't there. But like, they're going to be a force. I just think like the way that they can run the ball with the quarterback and the running backs, and the way that the weapons that they have, and their interior D line, their ability to stop the run and things like that, I think they're going to be right there in contention. So yeah, it's really San Francisco's the team that they're eyeing right now.
a Week 13 matchup's going to be one to watch. I hope we're on that before that.
Where is that? Is that in Philly or San Francisco?
It's in Philly.
Is it like a Monday night or Sunday night game? It has to be at prime time, I'm guessing.
I think it's an afternoon game. Unfortunately,
really?
Yeah.
I saw Bills Dolphins was like a 1 p.m. game this week, and I'm like all right.
Let me check real quick.
That makes no sense. But do you guys think Dallas is to be taken seriously now with Trayvon Diggs out, or how do you think that's going to affect them long term this season?
I definitely think it was a psychological issue with Dallas's defense this past Sunday. I think a lot of their heads were still in the space of like Trayvon Diggs like not being there for the rest of the season. I think that kind of contributed to why they played so bad on Sunday. I'm kind of more so like I'm a wait and see person, I kind of want to just see where they're at this next Sunday, and they still have Micah Parsons. They still have a great secondary. They still have Stephon Gilmore. They still have DeMarcus Lawrence and all those players up the middle. They're still going to be a top 5 defense. Like their floor, I think, is top 10. But at the same time, I think they're going to be okay. But they're still going to disappoint in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Cowboys are the problems aren't so much with their defense. I think it's more so, is Dak going to make good decisions in the red zone, and will they be consistent enough week in and week out to score enough points? Because CeeDee Lamb has been okay these first 3 games. Tony Pollard's been pretty good these first 3 games, but I mean, for me, I'm like, where are the big plays? Because at least Dallas the last couple of years, like you'd see these big plays, and right now, I'm just like, where are they coming from, and like how frequently are they going to get them? And once they get down in the red zone, will Dak take care of the ball? And in the Arizona game, you didn't really see that, either of those things. So I just think their offense is going to be their problem again. I think they have the defense to compete with every good team in the league, but if you're scoring under 20 points, you're not going to win many playoff games. So that's going to be their biggest problem. That's why I don't trust them really either.
Was Kellen Moore still there last year? I know he's not there this year.
Yeah.
Was he still there? Yeah, he was. Okay, so maybe that's part of the issue, because I know McCarthy wanted to call his own plays. That's why, but I couldn't remember, because they were pretty damn, like Konnor was saying, pretty damn good offensively last year. But this year it's just not the same, and maybe that's why. But I wasn't sure if he was gone or not.
Yeah, this is his first year with the Chargers. But yeah, the Chargers are, I think, 1-2 right now. I think Keenan Allen had a career high performance against the Vikings, and so did Justin Herbert. So
yeah, 18 catches, 203, and then Herbert, I think, was 4 for something for 413.
Yeah, so I mean,
he's like 40 or 47 passing. It was like ridiculous.
Something ridiculous. Yeah, and Keenan Allen was also 1 for 1 for a touchdown.
Yeah, that's
throwing the ball.
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know what led to that decision to have Kellen Moore like part ways with Dallas.
Well, I think it was partially because McCarthy wanted to call his own plays. I can't remember if it was during the Cardinals game or on Sunday Night Football, because I think they were on Sunday Night Football 2 weeks ago, or maybe the first week. But that was something they talked about, is that he wanted to call his own plays. So that might have been what the issue was. It was probably like Moore wanted to continue doing it, and he was like, well, no, I want to do it now. So that's why Moore left. Because people thought Kellen Moore was going to get a head coaching job, and then he just left to do the same job. But that's probably why.
Well, I know Mike McCarthy, I think the reason why he wanted to call his own plays is because he felt like Kellen Moore was a little too pass happy, and he put Dak in situations where, he led the league in picks despite only playing 75% of the games or something. So I think he wanted to get more towards like the running game and like just being not more conservative, but he wanted to be a run first team, not so much a pass first team. And the problem with that is like at some point you're going to have to take shots downfield, and right now like they're just not getting enough chunk plays. So,
well, the thing about Dak is the whole like leading the league in interceptions thing. Like, if you go back and look at quite a few of those, they weren't entirely all his fault. There were, I think, one game he had 2 or 3 interceptions where he hit guys right in the hands and it bounced off and it was picked. And for some reason, people were still using that to be like his decision making. Like, I don't care that it hit the receiver in the hands. His decision making, you shouldn't be throwing that ball in the first place. And it's like, it's the same thing with the Hawkinson play on Sunday. It's, yeah, I get maybe most times you don't throw that ball, but he did, and he made a arguably perfect pass, but you're still going to blame Cousins. So if a guy throws a deep ball and it hits a guy right in the hands and he drops it, that's the quarterback's fault too. He shouldn't have made that decision. So I don't know. I feel like people like to nitpick at Dak sometimes.
Did Hawkinson drop a touchdown? Because I didn't see the play. Like, what was the...
He, at the end of the game, Cousins hit him right in the hands for what would have been a game-winning touchdown with like 10 seconds left, and it bounced out of his hands, and then a Chargers player tipped it, and then it was picked off.
Okay.
But if you look at it, like, I don't know where else... Now, you could argue the Vikings should have spiked it. We're not going to get into the whole thing right now. We've already talked enough about the Vikings, but It was just the same thing with Dak. You can only do so much as a quarterback sometimes, and I would admit I'm kind of a quarterback apologist a lot, but I just think sometimes you got to really take a look at the tape and really understand where these interceptions are coming from.
Yeah, I think like, you know, Dak is like, I think Dak and Kellen Moore, like that combination, I think that worked really well for them the past couple of seasons. Going to the playoffs, I feel like, they got the best out of, all their weapons, Tony Pollard, Dalton Schultz in the past when he was there. Obviously CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. I think they did really well to maximize their weapons, even if it kind of seemed maybe pass happy and maybe weren't getting, I guess, ideal production out of Ezekiel Elliott. Maybe that's another frustrating thing. But I don't know if I just didn't think that was the right move to make because he was a head coaching candidate the past couple of seasons. I don't think he made his case any more than he did the year prior last year. I feel like he had a better case to go, a couple seasons ago, Kellen Moore, to be a head coach. But ultimately, I would say the defense is still okay, just considering their pass rush, that they won't be too much. There won't be too much letdown with the Trayvon Diggs injury because they still have a lot of guys on defense, even in the secondary, that they can rely on. But offensively, I think they might fall into a spot where they become too stagnant. And I think you can get a lot out of even Tony Pollard in the passing game too. So I think if they can shift how they kind of call the plays in that way, then they'll be better suited for, being able to compete against the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. Because I don't know who was saying it, but you're going to have to take shots eventually. And that's what, we would see out of them in the past. I think some of the, numbers are also like with quarterback interceptions. More often than not, it's not always going to be on the quarterback unless it's like, I remember it was like Jameis Winston who, led the league in touchdown passes and interceptions at the same time. I don't think Dak's that type of player, where he's that, reckless with the ball, but I think some of those numbers are a little bit misleading. I think that was last year, led the league in interceptions, but I still think that they have a good team. They can still compete. I just think maybe Kellen Moore is better suited for this era of football. Mike McCarthy had his days in the past, but I don't know if he's better suited for this team right now. But with that, I think, let me see if that's everything. I think we can go into score predictions now.
Cool.
So whoever wants to start, we got, one sec. I need something to write this down on. But we got Detroit and Green Bay first on Thursday night.
I got the Lions winning 23-20. I can see it going either way. I know Aaron Jones is probably going to play. Christian Watson probably going to play. I don't know. It's Aaron Jones looks more likely at this point, but I think Detroit makes enough plays to win 23-20.
I'm curious on the state of David Montgomery right now. I can't remember what his injury was, but it doesn't seem like Jahmyr Gibbs is ready to be like the premier back just yet. The Lions receivers are playing exceptionally well. The emergence of Sam Laporta has been very beneficial for Jared Goff. The defense is also playing exceptionally well. They played very impressively on Sunday against the Falcons. They, shut down Bijan Robinson for a better part of the game, keeping him out of the end zone. With Green Bay, they looked very flat at the beginning of the game against New Orleans, and I'm not, if they play a team like Detroit, they're not really going to look much back like the Saints did, especially even if Jared Goff plays the whole game as opposed to Derek Carr not playing the whole game. but they got the fight in them. But I don't know if it's going to be enough. Maybe it will be at home, considering this game is in Lambeau, but it's not the frozen tundra like it is. I mean, not just yet anyway. It's a mid end of September game. I'm going to go with the Lions winning this game, 21-20. It's going to be relatively close, but not quite. But not, it's going to be close, but yeah, you get what I mean.
Yeah, Lions 27-13. Sorry, I'm like all over the house. I'm trying to do laundry and stuff and get ready.
Lions 27-13.
Yeah.
Okay. Next game we have Atlanta at Jacksonville.
I'd really like to see the Jaguars receiving core get going in this game a little bit more than they did. I think, I don't know, let me just check the stats for. I'd like to see Calvin Ridley get going a little bit more because, he's been a little flat in the past few games. Considering, they traded for him and, he's a big name player and all that. Christian Kirk did step up. They did pay a lot of money for him, obviously. And, I'm not saying, money-wise, they need to get these guys the ball. But, regardless, they're still a very talented offense, as well as Atlanta spending a high draft pick on not just Bijan Robinson, but Kyle Pitts and Drake London. You want all your weapons to get involved as well. I mean, Atlanta's defense is very, very good. Maybe not too much as we've seen in the past couple weeks, as opposed to the first game against Carolina. I have the Jags winning this one though, 27-17.
Yeah, I have Jacksonville. I just don't know what to make of Atlanta. I think you see 1 week against Green Bay, they can put up points. Next week against the Lions, they don't really put up points. So I have Jacksonville winning. I'm gonna say 26-13, or actually this may get 26-14, just for a more round number. But I think the thing with Jacksonville is are they going to be a team that plays down to competition all year? And I don't think Atlanta's bad, but are they going to be they go into Kansas City, or they play Kansas City close, or they play Cincinnati close, or teams like that, and then they just struggle against teams that they should beat, like Houston. Atlanta's a tricky team because you really don't know what to make of them yet, but I think they bounce back this week and get it 26-14.
Yeah, I got Jacksonville winning this one 17-10. I don't see it being a high scoring game. But Jacksonville, I'd like to see them get back on track, and I think they'll kind of do that this time around. I think Atlanta's better than Houston, but I don't know. Doug Peterson's a pretty good coach. I think they get back on track.
All right, next one we have is Miami at Buffalo.
The famous game is at 1 o'clock, but I think Konnor said that earlier. I haven't watched too much Buffalo since the week 1. But anyway, I think Miami is a very impressive team. I mean, they can very well go up to Buffalo and win this game. As long as Josh Allen keeps the mistakes to a minimal, and as long as they can get James Cook going again, and they're more well-rounded with the football with Diggs and Davis. And also, they need to get Kincaid involved. They spent a high pick on him. Again, not saying if you spend a high pick on someone that you have to force feed them the ball, but regardless, I would like to see Miami win this game. I'm going to have them winning it 23-19. And then you're going to see on the Dolphins social media page with the monster same thing. We're going to 23-19. That'd be funny.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think I want to say Miami wins again. I just think Buffalo is going to be super locked in this week because they've seen what's gone on, and they've heard the noise about maybe Miami winning the division and stuff. I just think Buffalo. I'm gonna say Buffalo 30-27. I think. I don't know. I just think it's like their chance to really make a statement and tell Miami like, hey, we still are the class of the division. I do think Josh Allen, he's gotten criticized a lot for like the turnovers and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just like in big games, like not so much last year in the playoffs, but mostly in the regular season when he plays in big games, he's normally been really productive. So I think Buffalo takes this one, and I think Miami later in the season will win the rematch. But I think Buffalo wins this week.
I agree. It's a crime against humanity. This game is at 1:00. I missed it. Are they in Buffalo or are they in Miami?
Yeah, they're in Buffalo.
I don't want to take too much stake in home field advantage, but with a team like Buffalo, again, we talked about the whole division thing earlier about knowing your opponent. The Bills aren't going to get run off the field by the Dolphins the way that the Broncos did. They're a better team, obviously, first and foremost, than the Broncos. But they're at home. They play good. They play good football. I think it'll be a close one. I got the Bills 27-24 in this one.
Okay. I think it's worth noting, like, we talk about Miami, their offense putting up 70. I saw that after the week 1 loss to the Jets, the Bills have outscored their opponents 75-13 since then. So
they're putting up numbers of their own. It took more weeks, but that's more. But still, that's nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, so I think it'll be a good showdown there. Next one we have Denver at Chicago.
Aaron on Comedy Central at 1:00, and coming from Chicago. All jokes aside, I'd like to see the Bears win this one. I think it would be a big confidence boost for them. I know you guys would disagree with me, considering they're your division rival. I used to be a Russ lover, but playing for Seattle, I've grown to very much dislike him, especially last year, and like kind of just I don't know. Anyway, I feel like this is a must win. It's not really a must win for either team. I mean, it's kind of just like for the Bears. It doesn't really matter what happens. It's a must win probably for Denver. It's going to be a funny game to watch for sure. But at the same time, probably is going to be very boring to watch too. I have Denver winning this one. I'm going to go 15-9. I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah, I have Denver winning also. I think it'll be 23-17 Denver. I think Denver will be able to score on Chicago's defense. I don't think Denver's issue. I mean, it's still an issue, but like they can put up some points, especially on that like terrible defense. So I think they'll get into the 20s, and I think their defense is gonna really be pissed after what happened last week. And Chicago can't protect Justin Fields, and they just get a bunch of sacks. So they're gonna have a bounce back week. I think 23-17 feels right.
No, also agreed. Broncos all the way in this one, 34-21. The Bears are just. It's not that Denver's defense is good enough to hold them to 21. I mean, they should be. For the last few years, I've always thought that defense was the strength of that team. But the Bears don't seem to know what they want to do offensively. I think if they were playing Miami last week, I don't know that they would have even scored. So, yeah, 34-21 Broncos in this one.
Next one, Baltimore at Cleveland.
This game's a little tricky. I mean, I'd like to pick the Ravens, but they looked a little flat. The Browns did look very good last week, though, but it was the Titans, and the Titans are kind of... How do the Titans even have a win? Anyway, I'm going to go Ravens Yeah, and they're also like kind of going saying the same thing Connor said last week. They're going to be pretty pissed with how they lost, especially with the missed call at the end of the game. Um, I'm going to go Ravens winning this one 34-21. I think that was Christian's score for the last game, but hey.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I this one's tricky because I had Browns. I'm still feeling good about it, the Browns playoff prediction that I had. Every time they link up with Baltimore though in Cleveland, it's always a ridiculously crazy game. Like I don't know if you guys remember, like way back when they had that block, Ravens had like a block field goal return to win, and then they had like another year where
Will Hill.
yeah, and then they had like another year where it was like they went to overtime and Justin Tucker had like a 55-yard game winner. It's going to be an exciting game. I actually think I want to say Cleveland so bad, but it just feels like a game that, like how it always is there, like Baltimore is going to squeak out a win. I'm going to say 26-23 Baltimore. Maybe an overtime game, I don't know, but it'll be right down to the end, I think. But it's just one of those games. I think Baltimore always wins this type of game. So
I half agree with Connor. I agree it's a game the Browns should win, but I think it's also a game the Browns will win 20-17. I agree it'll come down to the wire. It'll be a close one, but I think the Browns figure out a way to pull this one out. They looked good last week. They didn't look very good in Pittsburgh. And then they looked great the week before that in week 1. So, I mean, you could use my own words against me. It's the whole divisional opponent thing. The Ravens know them. They can take advantage of them, but I just got a feeling on this one, and I'm going to stick to that feeling 20-17 Browns.
All right, next one we have Cincinnati at Tennessee.
I'm going to go with the Bengals staying on a roll here. I think Joe Burrow and Joey and Jamar, as I like to call them, it's not a reference to anything. It just, rolls off the tongue nicely. I think they're getting like they're finding their footing. They're hitting their stride, and I would say it would be nice that they got T. Higgins a little bit more involved because I think he was a little more flat on Monday night. I mean, he did leave the game for cramps, but I think if he can get more involved, this game, it will be one of those Bengals games that we saw in 2021 for sure. I would like to see the deep ball a little bit more incorporated, as we saw in the past with Joey and Jamar. And the Titans, I thought Derrick Henry was injured, but because I picked up Tajay Spears for fantasy because I thought Derrick Henry was injured, but that was a waste of a waiver claim. Anyway, Tannehill, I don't know why he's still starting. I mean, I guess he hasn't played bad enough in the past 3 weeks to warrant a benching, and it is still early as well. I really want D-Hop to get involved as well because, like me and Markos said, like on our one-on-one pod, that we both don't think this is the end for D-Hop. He's going to be one of those receivers that go to Tennessee and he's going to thrive, similar to, veteran receivers going to Baltimore and thriving. Anyway, I would like to pick the Bengals to win this game 28-13.
yeah, Cincinnati. We saw what they were able to pull off on Monday. I had a friend that was actually at that game, and he was saying that they're fired up that Joe Burrow played through that injury. I'm just still worried about what is his longevity this season, because as bad as Tennessee is, they're going to come ready to play as far as like playing hard, and they're going to be physical. So I still think the Bengals are going to win. I'm going to say 20-13 Cincinnati, but I just more have questions about, is Joe Burrow, like how effective is he going to be? And, I use fantasy numbers, not so much just because I play fantasy, but just to see like, does the production kind of meet the eye test? When you look at Joe Burrow, 2 out of his 3 weeks so far, I think he has like single digit points. One of his big strengths is his mobility when he's, he can sometimes break off these like 5 to 10 yard runs. And like right now he's so limited in what he can do. And I think it limits kind of what the Bengals can do. So if they can run the ball, it'll be good. But I still think they have enough to beat Tennessee. But 20-13 means that it's not like I'm expecting a blowout. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I got Cincinnati winning this one 28-24. The Titans aren't as bad as I think 1-3 or 1-2 says they are, but I think they're as bad as 1-2 says they are, if that makes any sense. It's like you, in the sense that they're not like a bad team. They're not 1-2 because 2 teams blew them out, but they're 1-2 because they're not good enough to finish games. And the Bengals have experience. It's just, I don't think anyone looks at this confidently unless you're a Tennessee fan and maybe someone who likes picking the upset and says you think Tennessee's going to win this game. I don't think it'll be crazy. I just think you look at it and like, okay, well, I'm making my game picks. Cincinnati wins that game, move on. And that's how I'm feeling about this one, 28-24.
Before I ask this question, good luck, by the way, this week, Konnor. We play in fantasy, so just wanted to remind you.
I need a W this week, man. I'm 1-2. I've had like the highest. I played the highest score in our league each week, so I need you to drop like a 70-point win for me. Yeah, so I've lost with like 105 and 90 points, so we gotta get a 70 out of Markos this week.
Zach waxed me last week. I think it was like 160 to like 110.
Our league is set up a little bit different. We do 2 flex, super flex, no defense, no kicker. So it's a little different.
No kicker.
We should do a finale league next year, maybe.
Yeah, next year.
But down for that.
You can do game picks in the ESPN app too. I don't know if you can share them, but we can track how everyone's doing that way too. That'd be sick.
Speaking of Cincinnati and their Monday night performance, last year they started 2-2. I don't know if they started 0-2, but they started 0-2 as well. Okay, do you guys think?
Yeah.
Do you guys think this is kind of the start again of Cincinnati getting it going here?
I'd like to see them get going again, but I mean, if this were the game to this is the game to do it. Considering you're still facing a very physical defense, but it's still a very winnable game at the same time. So if they want to, really try to hit their stride, as I just said, this is certainly the game. It's a good start to see where you're at.
If Burrow's healthy, I think they can. They won 14 out of 16 to close last season. I don't think that's going to happen again, but can they win 10, 11 games? Yeah, I think so.
For sure.
Got it. All right. Next one we have is the Rams at Indianapolis.
I think Anthony Richardson's back this game after suffering a concussion in week 2. I don't want to think that what we saw from the Rams in Seattle week 1 was a smokescreen, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Fluke.
A fluke. Yeah, there we go. Mirage. Yeah. I mean, we can definitely see that they're still pretty dangerous, and they can still come up with the plays for my God, their players' skill set. But I haven't watched too much Colts football to really know. I mean, from what I've seen, checking fantasy stats every Sunday, it seems like Michael Pittman is really starting to become more of a consistent receiver, getting open, catching a lot of passes, getting downfield. I don't know if he's made it to the end zone yet. And the Rams defense still has a few holes in it. Make no mistake of that. Their corners are pretty average. Really, all they have still is Aaron Donald. I don't know. Maybe I haven't watched him too closely. I don't know if there's Rams fans listening, you haven't watched the game. But anyway, I really want to pick the Rams, but I'm going to go Colts 20-17.
Yeah, this one's interesting. I could go either way. The Rams, I think, are a much better team, I think, than people probably thought going into the year.
Absolutely.
So, is Anthony Richardson healthy? I actually think they'd have a better chance of winning this game with Gardner Minshew playing. I just think, like, the one thing that Minshew did well in that second half was he just, like, played the game manager. Like, he was just distributing the ball. I think I'm going to say the Rams win this. I'll go 20-16, just because I feel like the Rams can get enough turnovers or takeaways, and then Stafford playing indoor in a, I don't know if they're gonna have the roof open, but like they we'll see. But like in that type of stadium, he always puts up big numbers. So I say 2016 Rams pull one out.
Yeah, this one I kind of had a tough time with because I wanted so badly to pick the Colts after beating the Ravens last week, but
Yeah, same here.
I think that was just one of those any given Sunday wins where the better team didn't necessarily win, and I feel more comfortable saying in this one the Rams are the better team, and I think they'll show it fairly convincingly, winning 30-20.
All right, next game we have a divisional matchup: Tampa Bay at New Orleans.
If Derek Carr doesn't play, I have the Saints winning. Just because I feel like the Bucs they're not very good with running quarterbacks. I also feel like I think this is the game where Olave ascends. Rashid Shaheed is an offensive weapon that I think I think the Saints are trying to turn him into their Devo. Certainly not as big and physical, but I think he's kind of just like the weapon. And then Michael Thomas has exceeded expectations this season. Certainly not to where he's capable of being or where his 2019 performance was at, but I also don't see Baker making too many mistakes in this game in terms of like turning the ball over. I do see him taking a lot of sacks in this game though. And the Bucs run game, I don't think correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's failed to get going at all this season. Just the way they run the ball all around, I think is not really what plays to Rashad White's strengths, certainly Leonard Fournette's strengths, but obviously, that he's gone. It's kind of frustrating, as a Rashad White owner in fantasy, watching him run up the middle, and that's just not what he does. But anyway, I have the Saints winning this one 29-18. Picking more outlandish scores because that's just what we've been seeing this season.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? That I don't know if you see that account. I think it's called like Scoregami or something, where you have like the unique scores. You've already had like 2 this season, and like the Dolphins almost set the points record. So, yeah, I could see that. The Saints, it feels like they've had like the Bucs number past couple years, like especially even with Brady. I mean, like the Saints defense has had like a couple shutouts and like that holding them to 3 points, especially with this game in New Orleans. I think the Saints, even with, I think Jameis would start, right? Or who would be? It's going to be
Jameis.
Yeah, so I think Jameis will make enough plays. One thing he does do is push the ball downfield. I'm sure Olave is probably going to have a touchdown this week. So I'm going to say 27-17 Saints. Baker and Mike Evans have had like a pretty good connection so far. But Mike Evans historically hasn't had great games against Marshawn Lattimore. It's been kind of like his one guy that he either gets like no stats or like limited stats, or he gets ejected from the game. It's one of those 2 outcomes. So it's actually both outcomes. Yeah, it's going to be both things happening.
Do not start Mike Evans. He's getting ejected. He's getting ejected.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
Kind of like when you had Crabtree on your fantasy team and you saw Aqib Talib coming up on the schedule. You're like, well, all right, you're getting sat.
Yeah, it's just one of those matchups that like bad stats and ejected in the third quarter or something or second quarter. So it's like one of those things.
Yeah.
I hope he plays all 4
Dude.
quarters and plays well, but I just think the matchup.
Yeah, I have him in
against
fantasy,
Cincy
and I'm
is good.
starting him.
Who Mike Evans?
Yeah, I'm taking the risk. I'm going to go for it. The funniest part about that is the first time that whole thing like really happened was when Jameis Winston was supposed to be hurt, and he walked off the sideline to like poke Marshawn Lattimore in the back of the head. Like, you're supposed to be on the training table. What are you doing? And then just he goes to push Winston, and here comes Mike Evans out of nowhere and just levels it. It was the most Looney Tune shit I've ever seen.
If we picked Mike Evans to get ejected in this game, Markos, for a bold prediction, Markos would be like, nope, pick again.
It's not that bold.
Or Mike Evans, 2 receptions, 20 yards. Like, he'll get held to that low. Markos is like, nope,
And
pick again.
1 personal foul. But yeah, the Bucks, I think they've shown that they're like capable of being a good team, but their wins are against not very good competition. Like, the Vikings aren't a bad team, I don't think. Call me biased, but they're definitely deserving of their 0-3 record. The Bears are hot, raging dumpster fire. And then the Eagles, that game wasn't as close as 25-11, even though that's not that close of a score. But that game was not as close as 25-11 would make you think. So this one also to me is a little bit of a toss-up. I kind of agree with Zach, even if Winston plays, which I think he is. I think Carr wants to, but they're not going to let him. I think even with Winston playing, I think they win, but I don't think it's by a lot. I think this one will be 24-22. It'll be like one of those weird try to go for 2 and don't get it at the end of the game kind of games.
24-22 Saints?
Yep.
And then Zach, you picked the Saints too, right?
Yeah, 29-18.
29-18. Okay, so I think it was 17-0 on Sunday. The Saints were up against the Packers, and they end up losing that game 18-17. So
the wheels kind of fell off after Derek Carr.
Yeah, the Derek Carr thing, and Jameis Winston, he didn't really do him any favors. I mean, their offense didn't put up any points, obviously, that whole second half. Do you guys have any concerns with that if Jameis Winston is starting?
Well, no, I think Jameis will do pretty well. I mean, a lot of guys love playing with him.
I think Derek Carr and Jameis Winston are both good quarterbacks. I think obviously Derek Carr is better than Jameis Winston. I don't think that's fair, up for debate at all. But they both have 2 very different playing styles, and you game plan the whole week. This is our guy. This is how we're going to play this. You do practice. What if he gets hurt? What do we have in place? But sometimes when that happens, you're just not quite ready. We've seen guys come in for guys and not play well. 1 week coming in for the starter, and then the next week they go and the whole week is game planned for them. The whole team is ready to play a certain way, have a whole set of scripted plays a certain way, catered to that quarterbacking style. Like Kirk Cousins and Justin Fields were on the same team. You're going to game plan your offense around Kirk Cousins way differently than you're going to game. So it's just kind of one of those things. It doesn't worry me. I just think they weren't as prepared as maybe they should have been. I guess you could argue for Carr to get hurt, but I don't think it's because Winston couldn't handle it and they're not as good with Winston.
Okay. Washington at Philadelphia.
I think Sam Howell's starting to hit a wall. I think he threw 4 picks on Sunday against the
Bills.
Okay. And the Eagles defense is, I would say, they're miles ahead of the Bills defense. Well, Bills defense is still pretty good, but anyway, I don't see this game being too particularly close unless Bieniemy plays to the weaknesses of the Eagles defense. I mean, obviously that's what he's going to do, But I don't know that they're going to be able to run the ball that well with Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. And obviously, there's not too much else to say about the Eagles offense. And the Commanders defense definitely needs to show up and, be as good as everybody says they are. But nonetheless, I still have the Eagles winning this one 31-13.
Yeah, Philly's a better team. I think Washington has some good players, but it's going to be one of those, especially in Philadelphia. I mean, I think wasn't there like a pretty big upset last year when I think Washington beat Philly in Philly? It
Yeah.
was like late in the year.
Yeah,
So what was
they
it?
ended them being undefeated.
Okay, yeah, I remember like it was like a pretty big upset. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think Philly's gonna remember that, and most of their team from last year is still there, like the big guys. CJ Gardner Johnson isn't, a couple other guys, but they're not gonna let that happen again. I think it's gonna be 30, let's say 35-17. And good day for Eagles. I think they get AJ Brown going, because AJ Brown's kind of been complaining on the sideline last couple of games. He's not getting the ball, so I think they're gonna get him the ball this week. Bold
Hopefully.
prediction. Yeah.
Bold prediction, getting AJ Brown the ball.
It's like the same thing with Jamar Chase. Like, they didn't get Jamar Chase the ball the last couple games, and then they gave him 20 targets. So it wasn't 20, but it was 14 targets or something. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, you want to feed your star, so you got to do that, especially if you're struggling. But I agree with Zach was saying about Sam Howell kind of hitting the wall. It kind of reminded me of 2021 when Sam Darnold was playing pretty well, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, the Jets were the problem," and it was,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he just started playing like the Sam Darnold we know and love, and then that was kind of that. But you also have to think and besides last week, as far as my memory serves me, anytime Howell's played, he's had a fairly good game. So you could say last week was an anomaly, not the good games. That being said, either way, though, Philly, I would think they win this pretty good, 30-27. I think it's my thing of the week, the whole divisional thing, but it's kind of like what helped Washington beat them last year is the whole familiarity thing. Also, the other thing is it's Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. So he knows what to do against that defense, but also you have to think on the other side, that defense is prepared for what Eric Bieniemy can throw at them. They know what he likes to do. Even though the quarterbacks are very different, you kind of have the idea of how he wants to run his offense. But either way, a lot of familiarity between the two teams and coaching staff. So I think it'll be a close one, but Eagles ultimately win it 30-27.
Next game, we have Minnesota at Carolina.
I don't know. Is Bryce Young playing in this game?
We don't know yet, but
I mean, not
What's his injury?
ankle.
Or
It was
ankle.
Yeah, I saw. It was something he got. I don't know if he got rolled up on, but yeah, it was something bad enough to keep him out last week. So
Yeah.
I mean, this is a game that the Vikings need to win. I mean, I think it is a must-win for them. I don't, it'll definitely put the Kirk Cousins trade talks to sleep for at least a couple of weeks if they do win this game. I mean, at the same time, you did beat it 0-3 team, but anyway, as long as the offense, plays as well as they know they can, and as well as they are capable of playing. I have the Vikings winning this one 25-15.
Yeah, I like Minnesota this week too. Even though Andy Dalton kind of got Carolina going last week, I was going up against Adam Thielen in fantasy, and he decided to have like a 2019 Adam Thielen. He had like 11 catches and 146 yards, and it's like really. But I think Andy will put up points. Panthers will put up points. But I think, yeah, like you said, Minnesota, they have to win this game. I'm gonna say 30-27. Oh yeah, 30-27. Minnesota. It'll be one of those that like you'll be on red zone all day. Just everybody's in the red zone, like back and forth. But I think Vikings take it.
Yeah, every time I predict a Vikings game on here, it always ends up the opposite way around. So I'm not gonna wish for wins quite yet. We're gonna still try to see if that trend follows. I got the Panthers in this one, 21-17. Just for jinx sake.
All right. Next one, Pittsburgh at Houston.
I think it'd be very interesting to see Houston win this game, but I'm not. It's definitely going to be a test for CJ Stroud with TJ Watt coming off the edge. CJ Stroud is definitely going to air the ball out, which I don't know that Pittsburgh plays out well with that. They certainly didn't against San Francisco and even against Las Vegas. But they're gonna be doing that most of the game because that's Stroud's strength. And Tank Dell is definitely going to stretch the field as well as Nico Collins. But they're going to stop the run for most of the game. Don't start Dameon Pierce. Kenny Pickett is. I haven't seen the Texans defense play yet, but it wouldn't shock me if they were like top 15, top 20, given D'Amico Ryans' pedigree. But I have the Texans winning this one 24-13.
Yeah, I just looked up the I'm on Bet Rivers Sportsbook right now. I had to look up the line for this game because in my head I'm like, Texans coming off a big win last week. Steelers have been sort of up and down. It's probably going to be listed closer than you might think. And like I was right. It was or actually Steelers are favored by 2.5 the spread, and minus 150 on the money line. Texans are plus 132. So you think it would be a close game. You could talk yourself into Texans underdog pick there. I think the Steelers probably win this game pretty convincingly, though. Young team coming off a big win. Normally the next week they get a little bit more buzz and the public wants to react to that. And I just think that the Steelers, I thought they played pretty well in Vegas against the Raiders. It got close at the end because there's a couple of missed calls, but I'm gonna say Steelers win. I'm gonna go 23-16. So like what is that? Yeah, a touchdown, full touchdown. They went by.
I think if Houston definitely keeps the mistakes to a minimum, I think they win this game because I feel like Pittsburgh has definitely benefited from their defense creating turnovers. Yeah, that's really all I have to say.
That's true, though.
Yeah, it's true.
The Steelers are such well-coached team, rookie quarterback against what's a pretty damn good defense, regardless of how people feel about the offense. The Steelers defense is pretty good, and they always will under Mike Tomlin. Like Konnor was saying, this Texans team so young, so fired up after what they feel is a pretty massive win, boost for the confidence. Kind of a recipe all around for just not a great day for Texans fans. I don't think it'll be a blowout or anything, but I think 25-15, like Zach said for another score prediction, I think that falls around the realm of possible.
For Pittsburgh?
Yep, Pittsburgh. My bad.
Next one we have Las Vegas Raiders at Los Angeles Chargers.
This will definitely be one of the more interesting games to watch this week, especially as I was looking through my iPad and looking at the storylines for the Raiders coming this weekend, and they're looking at other options at quarterback, whether it be, I think Ryan Hoyer is one of them, and Caden O'Connell, I think that's his name. Anyway, looking at them, so it's going to be very interesting to see if Las Vegas pulls Jimmy G from the game, if the game starts to go south. Similar to the Bengals, though, I can see a little bit that the Chargers are starting to hit their stride. They're playing to their strengths. Not having Mike Williams, though, is a pretty big blow, but I think it'll come with seeing the emergence of Quentin Johnston. So I'm going to have the Chargers winning this one at home, 24-10.
Yeah, this one's interesting because you have a lot of just talk about Devontae Adams wanting to be in a winning situation, and he feels like there's not adequate buy-in from everybody to have that winning situation. It's going to be in LA, it's going to be mostly Raider fans, but I still think the Chargers are just way better. I think it's going to probably be 30-17 Chargers win. Yeah, I think Aiden O'Connell, he played well in the preseason. They're quietly probably will start him one game this year. Brian Hoyer will probably get the start if Jimmy G either gets hurt or whatever happens this week. But just because he's familiar with the Patriots, saying he's come in for Brady and garbage time before. So I just don't really like the direction of the Raiders. They can't run the ball right now. They're giving up big plays, taking a lot of penalties. It sounds like the typical Raider game. But the biggest drawback this season is that they just can't run the ball. Like Josh Jacobs has been really bad this year so far. So if they can get that going, it'll be a little closer. But I think the Chargers have this one fairly, convincingly.
Yeah, this is a case, like we've said a few times tonight, where one team's just the clear better team, and I think that's Los Angeles. I don't think they manhandle them or nothing, but I think it'll be pretty steady, like, throughout the game. The Chargers will score, then the Raiders will score, and then the Chargers will score twice, and then the Raiders will score once, and then the Chargers will score again. Just a steady growth of, like, both teams will score, put up a good amount of points, but in the end, I got the Chargers 30-20.
Next one, New England at Dallas.
This will be a very interesting game. It's Zeke's return to Dallas. I don't know how much effect Zeke is actually going to have on the game, but I do have him at least scoring a touchdown in this one for sure. But Dallas, I mean, they'll be able to, adapt without Trayvon Diggs, considering the Patriots receivers aren't, what they played last week, which was
Jets.
the Jets. Oh, yeah. Anyway, well, they also played Zach Wilson. But anyway, it'll be, the whole country will be watching, paying close attention to it. America's team versus America's dynasty. Former dynasty, former America's team. But anyway, I'm going to have the Cowboys, bouncing back in this one, 27-20.
Yeah, this is going to be a boring game to watch. I just like the Cowboys kind of struggle to move the ball. The Patriots, they both play the same way. It feels like they're going to both be good defensively, but I just think Dallas has a little too much. And I don't know. I think it'll be one of those games, like if you bet the under, I think you'll probably win. But I have Dallas. I'm going to say 20-10. We'll go 20. It seems right because I don't want to just keep doing mid-20 scores because those games never like always happen like that. So I'll say Dallas 20-10. I think the Patriots are in a weird spot where they have a quarterback where they want to buy into him, but they don't have the weapons really to maximize his overall, talent level, I guess. Like the receivers on the outside, like they can't consistently get open. So yeah, I have the Cowboys winning.
Seems like Mac Jones's biggest talent is hitting people in the nuts. But
Yeah, that's
anyway, I agree. I think Dallas is just clearly going to win this game. I wouldn't say, I hate betting for Dallas. Not literally betting here, but I just don't see the Patriots winning this game. I agree. It'll be a pretty damn boring game to watch. We'll only see it on Red Zone when someone scores. Otherwise, we're not going to see this game at all. No, I think it's one of 3 afternoon games, so we might see more of this than we want to. It'll be one of those. It's like when one of those fish saw King Neptune's bald head. It'll be my eyes, but Cowboys win 24-7. I think the Patriots will get on the board early. It'll look like this will be a decent game, and then the Cowboys will just slowly run away with it.
Okay, next one, Arizona at San Francisco.
This game is interesting. It's a divisional rival for the Niners, and as well as it is for the Cardinals. We got one team that's looking, pretty hot, and you got another team that, hasn't necessarily played as well as they can, even though they're undefeated. I'd like to see Brock Purdy kind of, get in rhythm in this game because he's kind of looked off in the past 2 games for sure. Definitely looked pretty good against Pittsburgh, obviously, but anyway, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna guess, mid-40s. I'm gonna go 45-17 49ers.
Jeez.
Yeah, the Niners winning too. I think their defense is going to handle Dobbs a little bit better than Cowboys did. I think the Niners generally play. I feel like, I don't know, you could correct me if I'm wrong. Just against mobile quarterbacks, like they seem to play pretty well against. I'm trying to think, like, I don't really count the NFC Championship game just because, like, they literally were like hamstrung on offense. Like, I don't know if you can really put that on the defense, but I just think the Niners have too much. I'm going to say 37-20. It'd be one of those games where they're up big and the Cardinals get maybe a score in garbage time to push it a little closer. But I don't know. I think the Niners, like the Niners coming up, they have a matchup against Dallas at home on Sunday Night Football. So I think they're trying to get fine-tuned for that one. And they don't want to give away wins like this because they're pushing for the 1 seed.
Yeah, I got the Niners winning this one 33-20. I know the whole division opponent thing I've been preaching, but that's just not the case when it comes to the Cardinals. Last week, I don't think anyone should be sitting here thinking the Cardinals might somehow end up being a good team. I think last week was fool's gold. I think the Cowboys went into that game severely underestimating their opponent. Every week, you got to play everyone the same. It's the NFL. Everyone's adults here. Everyone's done what they can to get to the league. Nobody should be underestimated. Yes, you are definitely the better team. No, you can't just walk over other grown men like that. It's just not going to happen. But I don't expect this at all to be a close game. I think that 20, I agree with Konnor. I kind of had the same feeling. That's going to end up being only because of garbage time. San Francisco taking their foot off the gas pedal some way towards the end of the third or beginning of the fourth. But yeah, 33-20, 49ers.
Next one for Sunday Night Football, Kansas City at New York Jets.
I got Kansas City winning this one 26-13. I got a pretty bold prediction for this game. It's going to be mostly be rushing for Kansas City. If I'm right about my bold prediction. But I think most of the issues with New York, it is confidence. I feel like a lot of them do think the season's over now that Rodgers isn't there, and they have to put all their faith in Zach Wilson again. And kind of the tough thing to watch, like Zach Wilson was supposed to sit and learn for the next 1 or 2 years, maybe even 3. And now he's thrown back into the fire again, and everybody wants him out of New York. And that really wasn't supposed to happen, obviously, but and it could possibly happen. Like this could possibly be his last year in New York, given what happens this season, which kind of sucks, given what was supposed to happen. Anyway, that I don't see Mahomes doing too much. Wait to see that prediction. But yeah, nonetheless, they win. Start McKinnon, start Pacheco. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I think Kansas City's going to win. I think they'll be able to put up points, not because the Jets defense is bad, but I think they're just going to keep getting the ball. And when you give the Chiefs a bunch of possessions after they punt all the time, like they're going to end up scoring. So I have a 30-13 Kansas City. It's just a tough situation for the Jets right now. I think that the locker room knows that they don't have a shot at winning with Zach Wilson. When you hold the Patriots basically to 10, 13 points or whatever it was before, I think they got a late safety. Like, you should win those games. And right now they can't. So it's just going to further cause issues, I think. They know going into this week that they don't have a chance to win. So, yeah, Chiefs are winning this one pretty easy.
Zach and Konnor both stole something from me from this game. I was going to predict 30-13. I'm changing it to 27-14, just for the sake of having it be different. But I do think the Chiefs win this, and my bold prediction is also coming from this game. But I won't hint at it too much. But yeah, Chiefs are just gonna, like you said, you get the ball, they're gonna score. Even a defense, like I said earlier, is a Super Bowl defense. They're gonna get tired. They're going to get pissed off at the offense. I'm not saying they'll quit, but I am saying emotions will run high. You get beat when you get emotional. I just think 27-14 might be a little generous, putting the Jets scoring that close, even though it's not that close. But yeah, 27-14 Chiefs.
And then Monday night, Seattle at New York Giants.
I'm going to pick Seattle to win this game. I want to see JSN hit, start ascending. But I think New York is kind of back to being New York, especially if Saquon doesn't play, which, I think New York is going to regret paying Daniel Jones before they paid Saquon Barkley. I don't know what they saw in Daniel Jones to pay him, or continue on with him, or maybe Dayball wanted to fix him. I don't know, but because he fixed Josh Allen, But I have Seattle winning this game 17-6.
Gosh, that's going to be another game I'm not watching.
Yeah, Monday night's going to be dreadful this year.
You're probably right, though. I have Seattle winning.
It always is.
I'll go 20-14, probably. Yeah, 2014. I think I do like Seattle's offense. I think they have good players. For them, it's going to be about, can they stay focused? Can they win the games that they need to? The Giants right now just look so bad. I mean, especially without Saquon, I don't know if he's going to play or not, but the guys that they have on the outside aren't really that great. Matt Breida and other running backs are they're okay. It's just they're not going to win games for you. But Seattle, I think they have some good players and definitely enough to make the playoffs again. But if they want to get into the playoffs and not get dragged into a race, they're going to have to win this game. So I have it 2014.
Yeah, I got Seattle winning this 17-14. I think this will just be kind of like a going through the motions game. If anyone besides Seattle and New York fans decide to watch this, it's going to be a lot of going through the motions. It'll be a game where it'll be punt, punt, interception, punt, 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 fumble, touchdown, punt, punt. It'll like that's what the drive breakdown will be. It'll just kind of be like, oh, they scored. Okay, well, someone was due to, so I guess it was bound to happen kind of thing. But it'll be a slow-going game. It'll be 17-14, Seattle over New York.
And Zach, you said 17-6 Seattle?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bold prediction time. What do you guys have?
All right, you can ask me to redo this. Come back to me if I have to redo it, but I have Mahomes getting sacked 6 times, and he's going to throw for less than 150 yards, and he's going to throw a pick, no touchdowns. And it's going to be all Kansas City's rushing to win the game.
Okay, that's you're going to have to repeat that for me, but I think that's good.
So Mahomes will get sacked 6 times. He'll throw for less than 150. He'll throw a pick. Did I say 2 picks or 1? He'll throw a pick, no TDs.
Okay, I'm going to repeat this. Let me know if I got this right. Okay. So Mahomes sacked 6 times, less than 150 passing yards, throws a pick with no touchdowns.
Yep.
Okay, versus the Jets. All right. That's good.
Have Christian go before me because I'm looking at the games right now. I'm kind of iron something out. I'm like I have one, but I just don't think it's bold enough. So I'll have him go first.
Mine is from the same game, and it's very similar. So if you think they're too close, I can go back, look at the games, and change mine up too. But I have my bold prediction is because the Jets are going to be playing from behind the whole game, and obviously that means the Chiefs will be playing from ahead. The Jets will at some point decide to get desperate, and it will result in Zach Wilson throwing for 100 yards more than Patrick Mahomes and throwing for 2 touchdowns more than Patrick Mahomes. That's where they'll get their 2 touchdowns from. I believe I said they would score 20. That's where the 2 touchdowns will come from.
It's bold for Zach Wilson. I'll say that.
Well, it's just okay.
Because that's like saying Mahomes throws for 200. I'm saying Zach Wilson throws for 300. Mahomes throws for 300. I'm saying Zach Wilson throws for 400.
So it's just Zach Wilson
and 2 more touchdowns than Mahomes.
Okay, Zach Wilson throws for 100 yards more than Mahomes and 2 touchdowns more than Mahomes. Is that correct?
Yeah. And if it happens when we wake up this morning, we'll have heard that hell froze over.
Okay, let me write that down. There's more. I think that's bold. But obviously, game script can lead to that. But I think Zach Wilson still, that'd be impressive for him.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I had 2. I was like going back and forth on them. I want to say mine was going to be, I don't know if this is really bold because he had 104 receiving yards last week, but I was going to say Chris Olave is going to have 140 reception yards this week with Jameis at QB. I don't know if that's bold enough. And if not, I'll do Devin A-Chain is going to have less than 30 yards rushing this week at Buffalo. I don't know which one fits the bill there. No pun intended.
Make it 180 for Olave. And
Make it
got
100.
a deal.
Yeah. raise it for Olave because I feel like a chain
is more likely to happen just because,
That
So is A-Chain not bold? Does that not count?
Well, I think the Bills' run defense is way better than Denver's, and he's still got to share a backfield with Mostert.
Yeah. And he had a really crazy game last week, so you could see.
And running backs typically don't follow that up with 30 yards. I mean, yeah, it's
It's still pretty bold.
Pretty bold. It's a low number,
Yeah.
but
I think raising Olave's numbers makes that definitely bolder.
180 and you got a deal, yeah.
Wait, can we
We're
bump that?
forcing
Can
him
we
to-
go 170? I'll do 170.
all right, 170.
All right, yeah, we're bargaining to make his with Konnor for his bold prediction.
I was gonna do Andy Dalton to have like 300 passing yards, and then I looked at his game log last week. He had 361 yards in Seattle. I didn't realize it was that much. Imagine if we were on last week and somebody said that. Like that would be crazy. I can't do that because it already happened. So like it's possible. So I'll do Olave.
For some reason, that was so funny. 361. My guy with the red rifle was 39 yards away from having a 400 yards.
Yeah, see, Adam Thielen had like 11 catches, 126 yards, touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. The corpse of Adam Thielen. Love him, but man.
I think that's everything, unless we want to cover this Taylor Swift stuff.
Nah, I'm good.
Perfect.
We don't have to talk about it, but I did see something about somebody asked like if Travis Kelce was better at his job than Taylor Swift was better at her job, and at first I was just gonna say Taylor, but then I thought about it. I'm like, Kelce, like he might be the best tight end ever.
Time
yeah, I have to think about that.
I mean,
I
that's a good question. That's tough. We
There
can
was
talk.
a picture of DeAndre Swift standing next to Jason Kelce, and someone's like, "So you're telling me these two are?" And then you can figure out what the last word of there. So I thought that
let's
was
talk about Taylor.
funny.
Let's talk about Taylor Swift for the TikTok clickbait. Why not?
God Lord.
I don't
So who's better at their job then?
Yeah.
I mean,
think
Kelce is
I mean,
a top
going
10,
to be the greatest of all time.
He's
He
top
might be one.
top 5 all time. I'd say solidified, or like there's no debate in my opinion.
She won't hear this, but my girlfriend is loves Taylor Swift, so I'm not going to disrespect Taylor Swift too much. But I think if you decide how good someone is by where they rank at the end of their career, respective to whoever else has done it, you kind of got to give the nod at this point to Travis Kelce. Taylor Swift, though, is by far more famous than Travis Kelce is, but we're not talking about fame here. We're talking about like measuring it up at the end of the day, other people to do what you do.
Who's had
better?
the bigger peak?
I'm
Taylor
gonna say Swift too. 'Cause if you look at Swift, 12-time Grammy winner. Her tour is, I think it's her and Beyonce are going back and forth, but her tour is going to be either like one or two, like the most highest selling tour of all time. And, like, what Super Bowl levels of like economy influence and stuff. But as far as just like where they rank like number one hits versus Pro Bowls and all pros and records, stuff like that, I think it's actually it's much closer than you might think. So
yeah,
it's tough.
I don't think they're dating either, by the way. I think because the way Travis Kelce made it sound like on his podcast today, it kind of just sounds like he invited her out and like she came and then like they hung out after the game. They brought they brought the team with them too, like some people from the team, and like they just hung out. And then
the
obviously
Jackson Mahomes Taylor Swift memes were hilarious.
And then obviously someone said, "Oh yeah, they were affectionate towards each other." They only said that for clicks and reads and all that stuff, page views. I don't think they're actually dating.
So it's a PR stunt for somebody, or
Yeah, I think DeAndre Swift and Jason Kelce dating is a much better story.
Swift Kelce, but not what you expect.
Yeah, you really.
Man, I don't know why they didn't talk about that.
The Eagles posted something about it. That's partially. I mean, it was obvious, but that's partially where I got that joke. They posted the two of them Monday night, and we're like, "This is our favorite Kelce Swift duo."
Oh yeah.
All right. feel like we put enough attention on that.
Yeah, more than I want to do.
It's for the TikTok clickbait. It's for content. I don't even know if you'd want to post that part of this. But
Yeah, us and 300 million other people who talk about football.
Swift number, like if you talk about Swift at all on TikTok, you'll get views. Like I did it for like a music account I have, and it's like it got a lot of views actually. I was surprised. So
Yeah.
it might be good for the channel or the account.
Exposure. Yeah.
I saw Kelsey's like jersey sales spike crazy.
400%. That's fucking insane.
Sheesh.
It's a business, man.
Yeah. But
if you definitely go with it and lead people to the podcast, you might want to take out the part where I'm like, oh, for content, for page views.
yeah. Disclaimer at the bottom.
But if it doesn't get like say 1,000 views by week 5, I would just delete it.
Yeah. I'll keep that in consideration, but
delete that part too.
Markos is like, I really do not want to have any like part of
Yeah,
this.
that is also true. You don't want to get you don't want to get your podcast based off of freaking Taylor Swift.
that's the thing. But
you never know.
We'll see. I have options for sure. But
we got sound bites.
That's episode 61, everybody. So thank you guys for coming on again. So week 7 is when we'll see you. Week 7. So hopefully these predictions go well. You know, we got a lot of 30, 20 scores, you know, a lot of that going on, but we'll see how that goes. We'll see the bold predictions, see how that goes as well.
There's many NFL weeks where a lot of games have the same scores anyway, so it's not outlandish.
It's not crazy, you know. Yeah. We'll see what happens, but that's everything.
Bold prediction, none of us get any of these right.
Nobody gets the bold prediction. That's just
I didn't get it right, but I did say the Puka Nacua thing week 1, so I'll take a W on that. He's been like the best receiver.
I had no idea who that was before that bold prediction. So
I totally forgot about that until you said
I don't even remember that. I gotta go back and listen.
It was Puka Nacua and like Isaiah Hodgins or something.
Yeah, I said both are going to score a touchdown, but like Puka didn't get a touchdown, but he had like 120 receiving yards. I was like, all right, whatever.
You're like,
that would be great.
You're like, hell yeah.
That was a good one. So we'll have to see for this week. But yeah, episode 61's in the books. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.